Welcome to DudeNoWay Live, where we embark on a quest to play the greatest games of all time. I'm your host, Moonchild of DudeNoWay, and today we are being precise in Overwatch 2. A lot of times you'll hear people say, hey, just aim for the head, man. And you know, if only it were that simple, right? If only you could just aim for the head and land the headshots you wanted to hit. Well, in this show, we're going to break down a little bit of different aim techniques, the different things that go on inside of aiming in Overwatch 2, what makes you precise, what makes you inaccurate, and how you can get better at aiming overall. It's very important to be able to hit your critical shots for most characters, to be able to land the eliminations you actually want to land. So we're going to dive into the practice range here and just talk a little bit about the different aim techniques. And we're going to start with shotgun characters, because there are actually a shocking number of shotgun characters here inside of Overwatch 2. We're going to start with Reaper, who is kind of the most basic of all of them. We're going to put this here on a, let's just pick one. Let's put it on Hanzo, right? Let's put it on Soldier 76, actually. We'll put it on Soldier, and in general, with Reaper, you're going to notice that your reticle is like a big circle with a dot in the middle, right? And instinctively, you might think to yourself, well, the dot in the middle is exactly where I should aim for the head, right? And then when you fire, you're going to notice that it actually deals a pretty small amount of damage overall to Soldier 76's health. We're just going to go ahead and kill him, right? We're just gonna finish him off, right? But in reality, the thing about aiming inside of Overwatch when you are using the shotguns is that the reticle itself is the potential spread of the entire shot. So if you look, the spread is actually a little bit larger than the reticle itself, right? So because of that, you need to remember that if you are aiming onto the head, you're going to see a large amount of the shots go around the reticle itself, and if you are putting the center of the reticle directly on the head, a very large number of these pellets are just not going to hit, just straight up not going to hit. And you can see this by firing into the wall, and though it does not leave a lasting impression for you to be able to trace the bullets, you can see that as I hold down the trigger here, it is noticeably larger than the reticle itself, right? And this is just the default reticle for Reaper. And because of that, you need to account for that while aiming, and aim lower with Reaper's shotguns than you would normally think that you should aim, at least when you're using the default reticle. So as you come forward here, I'm going to aim lower than Soldier 76, and you're still going to hear the ding of the headshot, because when I am shooting from right about here, where the top of the reticle is right about on his chin, you're going to see that more of the pellets hit, and we're actually able to get a much larger amount of damage out than the original shot. Right? See, you can see the health bar is lower now than it was when we were standing back here and putting the reticle directly onto his head. And you can see that right here, the reticle is actually accounting for a large number of pellets that are missed around his body. So as you get a little bit closer, you can get right up to about having the reticle underneath his nose, and that will give you the pretty much maximum number of headshots, especially if you are barrel stuffing him, which is walking as close as humanly possible in this way. You're going to notice that the barrel is going to, like, he's basically going to fill your entire screen. That's a barrel stuff. And with Reaper shotguns, because we know how much spread the shotgun actually has when we fire, we want to account for as much of that as possible on the head. So we're just going to put the top of the reticle just underneath his nose, as though he's smelling it. And you're going to see a large number of damage. A large amount of the pellets that came out of the shotgun actually did hit him in the head. And again, you're listening, you can hear that we are actually hitting headshots when this happens. And even from this close, if you aim up directly, you put the whole reticle on his head, bang, you're going to see a massive, massive number of those pellets actually do hit him in the head. However, that does not work from range, and because of that, you need to account for that based on how far away you are. So again, this is like 5 meters away. As we aim up on the head, you're going to see a very small amount of his damage, actually, of his health pool is actually taken out. But as you get closer, you can aim the reticle directly onto him, because the spread is actually greater the farther away you are from the target, which is evidenced by me backing up here. You're going to see that the spread continues to grow larger the farther away from the target I get, whereas when I get close to the target, which we're using the wall as the target, you can see that it is a much more condensed spread there on the shotgun. And this is kind of how shotguns work in most games. just a little bit easier to see on Reaper because he has no weapon bloom, which we'll talk about here in a second. So again, when you get all the way up and you are barrel stuffing someone, you can put their entire head inside of your reticle and one hit them basically. When you follow up with a melee, it's going to deal basically their entire hit points worth of damage in a single shot there. And this is even after the Season 9 buffs to health pools. So we're looking at a 250 HP target. Again, you shoot him once in the head, you hit him with the melee, and he's got like kind of a CH worth of hair, of a hair worth of health left, right? Like a CH is an expletive hair amount of health, right? Very small amount. So you're gonna see as you're doing this in game, as you're pulling this off in game, if any one of your teammates tickles them just a little bit, or if the target deals any self-damage, which in the case of Soldier would be getting damaged by his own Helix rocket, he will actually kill himself with the remainder of his hit points that he has left over. And if we can, again, we can put it there, we hit him with the melee, and if you're not using melees to follow up on your shotgun shots, it's very, very important that you do use a melee to follow up on the damage that a shotgun deals. And in general, that will give you the closest to a one-hit kill possible, right? So again, we're gonna blast his head. We're gonna get him out of the way. Full health, shotgun, melee, and he's got like one hit point left, right? So we're gonna take him out, and that's pretty much Reaper. He has no weapon bloom, like I said. The farther you are from the target, the larger the amount of spread there is going to be on the weapon itself. And as you close the gap on the target, you will see that the spread actually gets tighter and tighter. Now, similarly, Doomfist is also a shotgun character, although it might not seem that way as you're using him in game. But if you look, we are seeing a very noticeable pellet spread pattern as we fire the weapon here inside of the practice range onto this wall. And as we back up, same thing with Reaper, the spread actually goes farther and farther away from the reticle itself as we back up there. And I'm going to go back to Reaper, and I'm going to show you. I want you to keep this reticle in your mind here. This is with Doomfist, and you can see that when you swap over to Reaper, actually a much, much larger potential spread on the character himself. And as we swap back over to Doomfist, you'll see the reticle is tighter. That means that in general, that is a more accurate shotgun for Doomfist than there is for Reaper. And again, this is just the default reticle here. And as we come back over to Soldier, you're going to see that as we back up a little bit, the pellets from Doomfist's shotgun will actually continue to hit in the head from the same distance. This is the same distance that we were on Reaper. However, it's going to be more accurate on the Soldier, although it will deal less damage because this is the type of shotgun, right? But you can see that it is actually pretty much everything is hitting there, and we're able to snag the easy three-piece, the 3 shots to a kill on a Doomfist target, even from this far away, right? And as we back up, you're going to see that as we put the reticle on his head, the shots are becoming less and less accurate because the pellets from the spread are actually going around the target. Now, similarly to Reaper, when you close the gap, as you get very close to their head, you're going to notice that the Reaper reticle was a little bit larger than Soldier's head entirely. However, the Doomfist reticle is a little bit smaller than his head, and because of that, you're going to get a more accurate shot using the Doomfist shotgun up close. So again, I can put this here, and you can see how much health it takes out, right around the same as a Reaper shot, right? And then 2, and now we're almost to death right there. And if we follow up with a melee, because Doomfist has a more accurate shotgun, which again is evidenced by the tightness of the reticle compared to the much wider base reticle of a Reaper, you're going to see that the headshot variable will allow you to get the 2-hit kill, the 2-hit plus a melee kill with the Doomfist. Whereas with Reaper, it left him with a tiny amount of hit points left, right? And then as we continue on with our shotgun characters, we move over to Torbjorn, and Torbjorn has the tightest reticle of all of the characters. And as you see, if we right-click, this is Torbjorn's right-click specifically, is a shotgun. The spread of the shotgun is actually massive, right? Even though the reticle is very small, the spread of the shotgun comparatively is ridiculously huge compared to Doomfist, which I'm going to go ahead, I'll do it right here so that we can see. Bang, right there. And like, as we swap back over to Doomfist, you're going to see that the reticle is actually much tighter. The pellet spread is actually much tighter on a Doomfist. And again, we swap back over to Torbjorn. You see how absurdly accurate the Doomfist pellet spread is comparatively, right? And then same thing with Reaper. When we go over to Reaper, the pellet spread is much wider on Reaper as well. However, Torbjorn has kind of a unique reticle in this regard because it is deceptive on how small it makes you think that the pellet spread is actually very small. However, the spread is actually very large compared to the reticle itself. And because of this is actually larger than Reaper's spread. Because of this, we have to get even closer for Torbjorn to be able to hit all of the pellets on the head. So if I aim from this 5-meter distance and I hit the soldier, you're going to see that it takes out a large amount of his hit points, right? But as I close the gap, I'm just going to kill him so that we're back to a full health soldier here. As I close the gap and I put the reticle directly on his head, you're going to see that it almost one-hits him compared to Reaper, who took about half of his hit points in a single shot. Thank you over on Twitch. I appreciate it, but I don't need promotion. I'm doing fine, and while I appreciate you offering it, I'm just going to go ahead and block you. Thank you very much for coming. Take your solicitation elsewhere. So, as we get close to the Soldier 76, you're going to see that I accidentally hit him there, so let's just go ahead and kill him. And again, this is with the right click. As I put the reticle kind of closer to his chest, you're going to see that a very large number of those pellets actually do hit the target. However, we did not get the tink for the headshot. And just very, very gently there, almost killed him with the second right click. But as we aim just a little bit higher, and we put kind of like his eyeballs in the top of the reticle, you're gonna see that, like, again, we're still seeing some very large amount of spread. However, it is almost deceptive in the amount of damage that it could potentially do. And again, I'm not moving here. This is just the same shot, right? And then we'll do it again, and you'll see that it has varying amounts of health. Didn't account for that weak spot, did you? So it's actually hitting. Of course, it's not giving me the thing that I was trying to show you right away. But the thing about Torbjorn is that his pellet spread is not fixed, right? So like if you shoot his shotgun, you're gonna notice that his pellet spread is a little bit different each time. And whereas when you swap over to Doomfist, again, I want to show you this with Doomfist, you can see that very clearly Doom has the same pellet spread each time, very, very close to the original spread each time you press the trigger, although a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, essentially the exact same spread. And when we swap back over to Torb, you're going to see bang, and then again, and you see these shots are kind of going all over the place, and that's kind of showing off the nature of his more RNG pellet spread compared to a different shotgun character. But still incredibly powerful. And again, this is from the 5-meter mark, which we were not able to do with Reaper. Again, like, we were taking him down to a small amount of health, and I'll just swap back over to Reaper so that you can see that is from 5 meters away on Torbjorn, but the Reaper shotguns don't quite work the same. And that's because the Torbjorn shotguns actually travel farther in terms of what they're able to do, right? So we're just going to go ahead. We'll put his head right here. This is at the 5-meter mark, right? We're just going to scoot forward a little. Bang. And 2. And he's still got health left, right? Death stops for no one. And as we aim down just a little bit, we're getting more of those pellets inside of the spread there. 1, 2. Still hit points left. And that, again, this is indicative of the different weapon styles of Torbjorn and Reaper. And moving on to another shotgun character, we can check out Diva, who is another very common shotgun character, although she might not seem like it. Her weapons are actually shotguns, and you can see as we shoot the wall here that they actually have a pretty large spread as well, although they are more contained within the reticle itself, right? As we back up and we continue to back up, Diva's spread is constantly within her own reticle, as opposed to Reaper, who the farther away he got, the more outside of his actual reticle the spread would go, right? And as I continue to back up, you're still able to see the marks on the wall show that the Diva continues to be within her own reticle spread. And although her shotguns deal far, far less damage, you can still get a decent amount of the shots on target here by aiming kind of closer to the soldier's chest. And by aiming closer to the soldier's chest, again, we're accounting for the amount of spread that shotgun has, because if we aim just for the head, a lot of those pellets are going above his head, right? So the center of the D.Va reticle is not actually what you use to aim, where the top is actually what you use to aim, and you want to consider the top of the reticle to be like the headshot placement, right? So we're just going to let soldier's health regenerate there. 3, 2, 1, and he should be at full health again. And now we're hitting most of the pellets on the soldier. Again, this is from that 5-meter mark. Most of the pellets on the soldier are still hitting him in the head from this distance. But if we use the center of the reticle itself, again, we're seeing a large number of those actually going above his head. And as you get closer with D.Va, her shotguns deal a very, very small amount of damage. The farther away you get, they have incredibly high damage drop-off. But if you listen...
You need aim training.
Speaking of aim training, but if you listen, as I hold down the trigger, it still sounds like you are getting headshots. You hear it? Ding, ding, ding. Even though we are this far away, and that's because some of those pellets are still hitting him in the head. But as I kill him... You can see how long it takes to kill him, whereas as we move forward, I'm going to do it from 10 meters here, as we move forward, significantly more damage, right? And then we move forward to the 5-meter mark, again, significantly more damage, all the way up until right about this 5-meter mark, and then it becomes how many pellets do you actually hit on the target, which to, when you're barrel stuffing the soldier, you just kind of aim just slightly below his head here, and that way you have the top of the reticle is kind of cutting off his eyebrows, right? And in doing so, we're going to get the most damage possible. And during the barrel stuff, pretty much all of these pellets are hitting him in the face, which is giving you the critical damage multiplier, and is the reason why he's able to so quickly be killed. Not as fast as a Torbjorn, not as fast as a Reaper, however, very quick regardless, right? So, D.Va is another shotgun character, but there's still another one that we need to talk about, and that is Roadhog. And Roadhog has possibly one of the more interesting shotguns, because while Roadhog shotgun used to work very cleanly prior to his rework, he actually had his entire kit reworked, where his right click and his left click have now kind of combined into a single shot, and as we fire it, you can see that there is a large amount of the pellets are directed in the center, and then the pellet spread actually kind of spreads out, but gentler compared to the Reaper or like the Torbjorn, because the vast majority of his pellets are actually in the center of the reticle there. So for Roadhog specifically, as you aim slightly lower, you're going to see that most of these pellets, and again this from 10 meters, most of these pellets that fire from the center are going to hit this soldier in the head, and this is because they combined his right click with his left click, where his left click was just a simple shotgun that worked more like Torbjorn's shotgun, and his right click fired out like a more condensed pellet spread of the weapon. They combined those together, so now there is still pellet spread. However, the amount of pellet spread that there is actually significantly less than there was before, and as we hit this soldier, you're going to see that it actually takes out a large amount of health, even from 10 meters, and that's because most of the shots, even when we're aiming the reticle onto his head, are still hitting the soldier, even though the top part of the reticle is actually above his head. And as we kind of put it down a little bit, you're going to see that the damage continues to go down the farther away that it gets, and that's because the largest amount of damage coming from the Roadhog shotgun, I actually have to back up so that you can see it, the largest amount of damage coming from the Roadhog shotgun is actually fired right around the center reticle. And so we need to, as opposed to a Reaper, who you are trying to get most of those pellets on the target, for the Roadhog, you are actually trying to get most of the pellets onto the head, because most of them are condensed within the center radius. So you see, as we get closer, that is at 10 meters, and we're utilizing the center spread there to deal most of the damage as much as possible. And as we get closer, you're going to see that it continues to take out even more health, right? And that's only 2 shots, whereas previously he needed 3 shots to be killed. And you can follow this up with a melee from 5 meters away and actually kill this soldier pretty accurately, right? And if you aim slightly lower than his face, you're actually going to get the most damage there. Of course, there is a little bit of variance in the spread as it does fire. So this is 5 meters, right? 5 meters, yep. So we're going to aim just slightly lower than his face. We're going to get most of those shots on target, and then you follow up with the melee, and that will be the majority of your ability to kill with the Roadhog shotgun. But unlike the other shotguns, where most of their damage comes from the spread, the actual Roadhog shotgun is better at barrel stuffing, because as you get close, as you barrel stuff the target into your shotgun spread, you're going to see that most of the pellets actually hit from point blank range, and that is also indicative of the lack of center spread compared to a Torbjorn, which is completely spread, or a Reaper, which is kind of more evenly spread. This is a high damage, highly condensed spread on the Roadhog shotgun, and that's why it takes out almost his entire hit point pool in a single shot, and you're able to follow up with a melee and basically instantly eliminate the soldier from the point blank range, right? Bang, and you follow up with one melee, and that's how the spread works for a Roadhog. And as you back up just a little bit, you're going to see the damage fall off is extreme. We're just going to kill him, and we're going to back up to the 10 meter mark so that you can see that the damage fall off becomes more and more extreme. That's 10 meters. This is 15 meters. And but you're still able to hit a large amount of the pellets on target as long as you actually do have the target's head inside of your reticle, right? And if I back all the way up to this wall, we're still able to kill him because the center spread of the Roadhog shotgun is actually so much tighter in grouping than the other shotguns in the game. Especially Diva, where Diva is a much more spread out, lower damage shotgun. This is a much higher damage shotgun and far more condensed, and because of that, straight up more effective at range here, right? And then this is why when you hook people in with Roadhog, you shoot them and then you follow up with a melee, and it basically kills them, right? So if you hook them in, you pull it close to yourself, and then you aim it directly onto their head, you're going to be able to basically follow up with a single shot kill on the Roadhog's hooked targets. You want to move forward as you're aiming, and that is basically their entire hit point pool, right? And that is, like, shotguns in general don't seem to have weapon bloom inside of Overwatch, but the characters that have weapon bloom, which are a little bit easier to understand, which would be like a Tracer. I'm going to go ahead and pick Tracer. You're going to see that as you use Tracer, her reticle gets wider, right? And that is weapon bloom in action. The longer you hold down the trigger, the wider the actual shots go, where the initial shots are very condensed within their actual grouping. As you hold down the trigger, you'll see that the reticle widens out, which means that the variance in shots becomes greater, making it harder to hit targets from far away as you are pressing the trigger and firing more rapidly. And that is true across a bunch of different characters as well. We can see it with Widowmaker. You're going to see as her assault rifle continues to hold down the trigger, her reticle blooms out, and that is showing the inaccuracy of consistent fire utilizing the weapon. Whereas when we swap over to Soldier, we can see that the I'm actually not using the default reticle for Soldier, but the point holds true in that he does not have weapon bloom. He has weapon recoil instead, and what weapon recoil does is force the weapon to go in a direction as you hold it full auto. But if you fire in short controlled bursts, you'll see that it actually resets before you fire again. And if you hold down the trigger, it's going to give you a very strong vertical recoil, either up and to the left or up and to the right slightly. But again, when you fire in controlled bursts allow the reticle time to reset back to the place that you want it to be before you actually have to worry about the recoil taking effect. And the recoil, when you're on mouse and keyboard or you're on controller, can actually be counteracted by pulling down either on controller on the right thumbstick or on mouse and keyboard by aiming up, by like raising your mouse up. You can pull down on the mouse gently as you fire full auto and actually counteract most of the vertical recoil of Soldier's weapon, staying accurate even at those longer ranges, right? That is not possible with a weapon like Tracer's, where it doesn't matter. There is no recoil. It doesn't actually pull your crosshair anywhere, but the spread is the thing that is giving you trouble here. where Tracer's submachine guns work more like a shotgun in that regard, because they get less and less accurate the longer you hold down the trigger, and the same can be said about Widowmaker, less and less accurate the longer you hold down the trigger. This is something that you need to account for, so when you're playing characters like Soldier, and you know that you're trying to fire a lot, you need to be gently pulling down on your mouse or your right thumbstick to maintain accuracy over the course of your entire magazine. Now, when you have somebody like Bastion, Bastion is another one of those characters that it doesn't seem like he has a recoil pattern until you swap over to the tank mode of Bastion, and then you can see that the recoil is actually pretty spread alongside his reticle. So you can try to treat Bastion a little bit more like a shotgun, insofar as that when he is utilizing his primary fire in his recon mode, he's going to be totally fine. Recon, right? Yes. And when he is in his assault mode, you need to aim slightly lower to get most of those shots on target, right? And while he does have a critical shot multiplier inside of his recon mode, he actually does not have one, I'm pretty sure, inside of his assault mode. And so what you're really aiming to do is hit the majority of those shots on target. Now, Bastion is kind of unique in this regard, because not only does he not have a weapon bloom for his gun, he also does not have a recoil pattern for his gun. And so while he is in his primary form, his weapon actually remains fully accurate even at long distances without you having to adjust for the weapon recoil like you do for Soldier, or for the weapon bloom like you do for Tracer. So he gets to remain accurate even at longer distances, although his damage drop-off is still something that comes into play. So again, as you're using his main weapon inside of recon mode, you're going to see that the damage drop-off is not so bad inside of his regular form. However, when he swaps over to his assault mode, his damage drop-off becomes far, far more steep, and his damage actually goes down in the amount of damage per projectile that actually comes out. So as I swap over, you're going to see that the damage is actually lower per projectile inside of his assault form, and this is with me hitting most of those shots on target. 3, 4, 5, 6, and able to get the kill. Whereas when we swap over to the assault form, just waiting until it cools down. Very significant damage drop-off inside of the assault form, and also the farther away you are, the less of those shots actually land on target. And because of that, Bastion is one of those characters that you have to understand what range you need to be working with and what form you should be in when actually utilizing his weapon. Now, you can use his secondary fire to get a little bit of additional damage on him, but if you're trying to hit those headshots, if you're trying to maintain accuracy from far away, you actually want to use just his standard primary fire, and in doing so, you're going to be able to remain accurate even at incredibly long distances. Even as I stand all the way back here, he's still able to very easily maintain his shots on target. Where if I did that with Soldier, I'm going to run all the way back to where I was, and you're going to see what I'm talking about here. If I do that with Soldier, it actually doesn't work, right? So you have to fire in shorter bursts to maintain the recoil and give it time to reset before it actually loses its target. And when you're utilizing a like an assault rifle like that, the same thing is true with Widowmaker. From farther away, the initial shots are accurate, while as you continue to hold down the trigger, the bloom kicks in, and it becomes less and less accurate as more of those shots kind of go around the target, even when you have the reticle directly on their head. And this can be combated a little bit by firing in shorter bursts with Widowmaker, but the bloom will eventually still kick in unless you put a significant amount of time in between your shots, right? So the other thing about Widow's gun is that her weapon is hit scan. However, her critical headshot multiplier goes up significantly as she aims down sights. And since no other characters have an aim down sights mode, this is the only character I could talk about this with, but her critical multiplier for her headshots is not as strong. Like, her damage for her headshots is not as strong when she's in her assault rifle form, whereas when she is in her sniper rifle form, the damage actually goes up significantly. And this is different than Anna's sniper rifle, who is a straight-up damage over time weapon and actually can't headshot at all. So, that's something also to keep in mind. as you are utilizing a character like Mei, you're going to see that Mei, she has no weapon bloom at all, right? But when she right-clicks, you're going to see that her weapon fires from far away, and it maintains the amount of damage that it does across mass distances. That's because Mei, on her right-click, her icicle actually does not have damage drop-off, so it's going to deal the same amount of damage per headshot, regardless of whether you're 2 meters away or 102 meters away. So this is something to keep in mind when you're trying to be accurate with Mei, is that you can actually, you can put in the 2-shot kill on targets from, like a gigantic distance, regardless of whether you are, of course I missed. Regardless of whether you are accurate or not, with the primary fire, you're gonna see that the headshot damage, and of course I'm not gonna hit a single headshot, there we go. The headshot damage will stay the same, even as I am, of course I'm not going to be able to get it. There we go. Bang. Even from this far away, still a 2-shot kill in the head for Mei. And all of these guns function differently. All of these weapons function differently and have different either recoil patterns or spread or, you know, in general, the way that they function is different. And damage drop-off, that's what I was looking for. The way that they function is different across different characters. And because of that, you have to adjust accordingly. With Cassidy, you're going to notice as you fire, you can fire with full auto, and you'll never see his reticle bloom out. That's because he has no weapon bloom, right? He has nothing that stops his weapon from being inaccurate over long range. However, he has massive damage drop-off, where if you see, I'm firing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 headshots to kill the bot from this far away. Compared to, as I move forward and I close the distance a little bit, we're able to significantly reduce the amount of shots that it takes to actually kill a bot from this distance, right? So in the kind of mid-range, Cassidy is insanely powerful, but rapidly loses his effectiveness the farther away you go. And I can show you that here. This is pretty much as far away as you can get. And that's 5 shots to kill, right? And essentially, the farther away you are for Cassidy, the less and less likely you are to get the actual kill on somebody. That being said, there is no variance in his shot either. So his weapon is always going to hit exactly where the center of the reticle is, no matter how far away he is from the target, unlike the shotgun characters, where they will become less and less accurate the far away they are, because the spread actually goes around their reticle or to a greater degree inside of their reticle. Cassidy's kind of slug nature of his hit scan weapon makes it so that he is always accurate directly in the center of his reticle, regardless of how far away you are. However, like Soldier 76, Cassidy's revolver actually has a significant amount of recoil, as evidenced by the reticle bouncing up as we fire, right? You can see, as you fire the gun, the reticle is going to bounce up, and that recoil pattern is something that you can account for. However, it's far more likely that instead of dragging down on your right thumbstick or the mouse, like you do with Soldier 76, you're going to be far more likely to hit the shot if you simply pace your shots with Cassidy and fire as the recoil is resetting back down to its original position, right? And in doing so, you're going to maintain accuracy, and this is not exceeding its rate of fire, although you can fire faster, right? As you fire faster, you're going to see, as you fire full auto, you're going to see that it just barely extends past the reset time. So it is slightly faster than the actual reset time of the weapon itself. And if you right-click with him, you're going to notice your weapon bloom is massive, right? And that is because the spread of your 6 shots is going much wider, similar to a shotgun. The bloom of your weapon is instant, though, unlike Tracer, who has a ramp, or Widowmaker, right, who has a ramp up to their bloom factor. As soon as you right-click with Cassidy, it instantly blooms out, and then will shrink back down to size as you reload. Now, this bloom can be counteracted, similar to Soldier 76, by pulling down on the right thumbstick or on the mouse, and in doing so, you're going to be able to maintain accuracy, even from, like, a moderate distance away, and still hit most of your shots on target. However, the farther away they are, the less and less likely it is that your shots will actually hit, because there is variance within the reticle. As the reticle gets larger and the target within the reticle gets smaller, it is less and less likely that you will actually hit these characters. So this is something that you need to account for, and basically the right click is really not something that we use anymore for Cassidy. However, if you do use it, you want to use it only from close range, where the most of the enemy is within the reticle's actual range here, and in doing so you're going to get the most out of the weapon itself, right? So there you go. You can also use, if you have a target like Winston, whose head is kind of mid-level, it's pretty easy to maintain the accuracy right around his head, and in doing so, you're going to continue to get the damage multiplier for a headshot for Cassidy's Fan the Hammer. Where you look at that and you compare it to a character like Sojourn, who has a large amount of bloom on her actual weapon, as evidenced by me holding down the full auto here. You're going to see that as you, while I'm not using the default reticle, as you hold down the full auto, it becomes less and less accurate even when you're not moving the reticle itself, right? The shots, you can see them bouncing off the wall. They start out very accurate for the first like 10 or so shots, and then the variance in the formula gets larger and larger over the course of the magazine. And to combat that, you can fire in shorter bursts as Sojourn, and in doing so, you're going to maintain that accuracy over longer spurts of firing. So you're going to see, but even in doing so, you're going to see your shots become less accurate over time regardless. And the other thing about Sojourn's primary fire is that she actually has a projectile weapon compared to pretty much everyone that we've covered thus far, which is a hit scan weapon. And a projectile weapon means it has travel time, right? So it has to actually travel to the target, and because of that, you're going to see that the amount of time that it takes to get there is different depending on how far away they are. This also means that you have to lead the shot, which is you are firing in front of where the target is moving. So if they're moving to the right, your reticle needs to be in front of them to the right by a decent amount of distance, and a greater amount of distance depending on how far away they are from you. So if they are, like, pretty close to you, you can lead the shot by just aiming in front of them very slightly, whereas if they are a significant distance from you, you need to lead the shot by a greater degree to be able to maintain accuracy at those longer ranges, right? So I'm going to show you from here. And that's how you're able to, without having the reticle actually on the target, you're able to actually get the headshot damage on the bots as they are moving past you. So this is something to keep in mind here, and in doing so, you're going to more accurately be able to judge how far you need to lead the shot in an actual game. And you can see as we back all the way up to this doorway, you're going to see, if I press the button once, how long it takes for the bullet to actually reach the target, compared to a hit scan weapon like a Soldier 76, who will reach the target instantly, because there is no travel time for a soldier's bullets compared to a Sojourn's bullets. These are just instantly on the target, right? So if you are on there, it's called hit scan, and it scans the target to see if your reticle is actually on them, and if it is, then it instantly delivers the damage, compared to a Sojourn who needs the travel time to actually reach them. And this difference is important to understand, because it means that you are it means that you need to treat the weapon a little bit differently each time you use it. Going back to the submachine gun characters, you have a character like Sombra, who, like Tracer, has a submachine gun that blooms out the longer you hold down the reticle, or the trigger. However, Sombra's spread is significantly smaller than Tracer's. As I can show you here, you're firing Sombra's spread is pretty tight compared to Tracer's spread, which is significantly larger. And the shot variance, in accordance to the reticle blooming out, is also different. So as you play with Sombra, you're going to see that the shots maintain kind of pretty solid accuracy with inside her reticle, but the Tracer reticle is actually larger, and because of that, gives you a larger variance in the amount of shots that actually land closer to the center mass, right? So what does that mean in game? That means that with Sombra, you can actually be farther away from a target and maintain accuracy while the reticle is directly, the center of the reticle is directly on a target's head. You can be farther away than Tracer as Sombra and still maintain accuracy over the course of that distance. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it is going to be tighter for Sombra in general compared to a Tracer, who will have a harder time actually maintaining that accuracy from the distances that she's at, right? And you can see the damage in, the difference in damage is also pretty large between Sombra and Tracer as well. And because of that, Tracer is going to deal, this is their damage fall-off range. Tracer is going to deal exponentially more damage up close than a Sombra will, because her damage fall-off is actually a lot higher. Right, so the Sombra can shoot from here, but still not quite as fast as the Tracer. And as she gets farther away, she's maintaining a lot of that damage, even though she's getting farther and farther away. Whereas the Tracer will have to maintain accuracy and probably reload to get the same kill from the same distance, right? So you're seeing, as we're nailing all of the headshots that we could possibly get, we're actually losing our ability to maintain accuracy, and the damage per pellet is actually less for Tracer than it is for Sombra, but the damage up close, is actually more for Tracer than it is for Sombra, but the damage drop-off is higher. Sombra's damage per pellet is less, but her damage fall-off is actually longer, which gives her a slightly different type of submachine gun. And, the reticles are very similar, however, Sombra's is a little bit tighter, and that shows you that you can be farther away and still maintain your accuracy, right? And then you compare the Cassidy type of reticle to an Ashe type of reticle, and you're going to see that Ashe's reticle, while it does have the damage drop-off here, is going to be a little bit easier on the damage drop-off, both from hipfire and from the aim down sights modes. The damage drop off while aiming down sights, you're going to see this is where zoom comes into play. And as the only other character that utilizes zoom in the game other than Widowmaker, we can drastically see the difference in her ability to take shots from longer distances, because the Ashe reticle actually zooms you in by a decent degree, although it's not a sniper scope, so it doesn't zoom you nearly as much as Widowmaker. So you're going to see that as you fire from the hip here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's also bloom on Ashe. I'm not using the default reticle, but there's bloom on her hipfire, whereas her aim down sights mode, there is no bloom, because it actually will not fire until it is fully reset. So the zoom factor is what gives her the additional damage while aiming down sights. You can see that the target grows larger as I aim, right? Larger, smaller, and because of that, that is increasing how much damage drop-off affects her, decreasing how much damage drop-off affects her even. So she's able to hit for full damage from farther away because of the zoom factor, and that is only otherwise that only comes into play otherwise with Widowmaker, who has a very large zoom. You can see the difference in the target size. Very large zoom compared to Ashe's slightly smaller zoom. And that makes a big difference. Spicy One, I sent Lifeweaver gameplay. I thought you was reviewing it in this stream. I am not. I've told you multiple times that I am out of Lifeweaver thumbnails. I appreciate you sending it, though. And as I get more support gameplay, I will do a more generalized support review. Thank you for sending it to me, Spicy One. I am out of Lifeweaver thumbnails. I don't have any more Lifeweaver shows lined up anytime soon, but I appreciate it, dude. As I get more support gameplay sent in, I'll throw one of your gameplays in there with some of the other support gameplays that get sent in. So, when you're using Baptiste, you can see that his reticle, and this is just the default BAP reticle, BAP has kind of a unique gun in that it is a pulse rifle, which means that it fires more than one bullet at a time. And you're going to see it actually fires 3 per burst, and in doing so is going to give you a small amount of recoil between each shot, right? And the recoil for BAP, even when you're firing full auto, actually fully resets there before it is back to the main position. You'll see before you can fire the shot, the recoil goes all the way back down to the starting point of the weapon here, and that's significant because you can you can utilize his smaller recoil pattern compared to Soldier 76, and you can deal a large amount of damage across range by gently pulling down on the stick or on the mouse, and in doing so you're going to hit all three. Whereas if you aim on their head, there's a potential that you miss some if you're not actually pulling down on the weapon. You need to aim either slightly lower or pull down on your right stick / mouse to be able to get the full damage from a Baptiste shot. And the farther away you are, the more you have to pull down. So as we get like to this distance here, you're going to see that the damage, not only does it have damage drop off, but it becomes less and less likely that you're actually going to hit those, even when I actually am pulling down on the stick, because the variance is compared to the hitbox size, the variance in the shot is actually raising it above the target. And while BAP is able to take some duels from pretty far away, the recoil pattern is something that you have to keep in mind, because if you are straight up aiming for the head on Baptiste, you're going to find that 1 or 2 of your shots miss, depending on how far away the target is. And you can see it right there, as the first 2 shots missed the first 2 bullets, whereas the third shot hit all 3 bullets, and that makes a big difference in how you utilize the weapon. And again, you can combat that by pulling down gently and get all 3 shots together. Just like that, bang, bang. And very, very easy kind of shots with Baptiste. You don't have to worry about aiming for the head with his secondary fire, because the grenade itself is actually like a large model. The grenade itself is a very large model, and because of that, it will hit. It's kind of like shooting bowling balls, right, in the general direction of an allied target, and the bowling balls will hit basically anything that is nearby. They have a pretty good amount of aim assist as well. As I put the reticle slightly to the side of this target, you're going to see that it still direct impacts the target on the left, and as I put it slightly to the left of the target on the right, you're going to see that it still direct impacts the target on the right. Just put it right there. Bang. So you're still getting that DI additional healing there, which is significant and important to understand. But his primary fire differs from his secondary fire, where his grenade launcher is actually more accurate over a shorter distance, and his pulse rifle is actually more accurate over a longer distance, although you need to account for the recoil spread. You could just use a normal thumbnail for the stream on Lifeweaver gameplays. You did that on one of my Lifeweaver gameplays before you ran out of. Yeah, man, I understand. I appreciate it, dude. I've reviewed a ton of your gameplay, and while I do appreciate you sending them in, I want to give everybody else a chance to also send things in, and I'm not going to do, I don't want to do just your gameplay, 3-4 times a week, but I do appreciate you sending them in. When we look at Illari's primary fire, you're going to see that the shot will hit directly on the center of the reticle no matter how far away you are. But the damage drop-off becomes greater the farther away you are as well. So as we stand kind of at this extreme distance with Illari, you're going to see that the damage that she deals is actually less than she would deal if she were a little bit closer to the target. So her damage range, because this is a rifle-like weapon, her damage fall-off is actually pretty far. However, the shot maintains its accuracy regardless of how far away you are. Similar to Cassidy's primary fire, you are always hitting directly on the center of the reticle, and this is going to help you to land those headshots, but you need to understand your damage drop-off range, right? As we get to about here, you're going to start to see this is like the long mid-range. You're going to see that the damage drop-off removes your ability to nail the 2-hit here, and that is important to understand when you're playing as Illari, because while you maintain your optimal range, you will be able to very easily take targets out with your primary fire. Compared to, if you try to use her like she's Ash, then you will see a much harder time to be able to land your shots there. So her critical damage multiplier is also very strong, so if we look compared to a body shot, if we hit the body shot on the soldier, you're going to see it takes out a very small amount of his health compared to the headshot, where the headshot is actually very, very powerful against him, even at these longer ranges, and the body shot becomes less and less powerful the farther away we actually go. As we hit the body shot, you can see that it barely damages this bot at all, whereas if we hit the headshot from the same distance, we get a very large amount of damage onto the bot, and that is important to understand with Illari, because you need to play Illari within her optimal range, otherwise she is a far less impactful character. Her weapon is also unique in that it deals less damage the less of the charge you let charge up. So you see underneath the reticle there is a charge meter, and you're going to see that there is like there's two parts to the charge meter, right? And the first part is your base charge, and that's how much you need to let it charge before you'll deal like the smaller amount of damage, where anything below that will deal the same amount of damage over and over again, right? But as you get larger past the initial block around the reticle, you're going to see that the damage actually ramps up significantly, and even when you are not quite letting it fully charge, you're still able to get the 3-hit on targets who are within your optimum range, right? So I'm just going to back up here. And that is you taking advantage of the charge. You need to let this charge to be able to get full value out of it, but that does not mean that you have to let it charge all the way if you're trying to engage with somebody who is within your optimal damage fall-off range. So that's important to know for Illari. With Lucio functions similar to Baptiste in that he also has a pulse rifle, although Lucio's pulse rifle is a projectile weapon compared to Baptiste's pulse rifle, which is a hit scan weapon. Lucio also fires 4 bursts in his pulse rifle, which, if you're a Destiny player, this is an aggressive burst pulse rifle, which significantly changes the way that you need to utilize the weapon compared to Bap. Lucio, however, has no weapon recoil, and because of that, you can fire directly at the same place. You'll never see it bloom. You'll never see the reticle raise at all, even when you're full autoing, and that is because the weapon just functions differently than Bap and differently than like Soldier 76 and even like Tracer, who has a very similar looking reticle at full bloom, right? You can see hers is almost the same size as Lucio's. However, Lucio has no variance in his shot and remains accurate even at the longer distances. And that's because he has no bloom. And if he did have bloom, you would see the reticle get larger over time. Because he has no bloom, you're going to see that the reticle maintains its actual size, and it maintains his damage, maintains its consistency throughout all ranges as well, which is not something that most characters can boast. So with Lucio, he has basically no damage drop-off range, so the shots, even from very far away, will hit the same amount of damage as the shots up close, which allows you to use him more like a sniper, even from incredible ranges, right? But as we get close, let me try it from here. As we get close, you're going to see that it doesn't actually deal any more damage than being far away. I'm just going to kill this target, right? And then we will show you from far away the exact same amount of damage as it was up close, and because of that, you can utilize Lucio's weapon more like a sniper and hit targets that are extremely, extremely far away. And in addition to that, with the projectile weapons, you have to lead the shot, right? And leading the shot is where you are in front of the target as they are farther away. You are, whatever direction they're moving, you put your reticle ahead of them, and the farther away they are, the farther away, the farther in front your reticle actually needs to be to maintain accuracy across those longer distances. So with Lucio, he actually has a slower damage travel time than someone like a Sojourn, who can do it a little bit faster than Lucio can. So you need to lead the shot slightly more with Lucio, and this basically just comes down to muscle memory, but the two are very, very close. So you're going to see that as you're playing Lucio and you get used to the way that he plays, if you can lead his shots in front of the target, you're just going to need to aim them a little bit farther in front of than you would if you were playing like a Sojourn or something like that, and you'll be able to maintain accuracy from farther distances, right? I'm trying to wait for this bot to come back. So this is from here. And you can see that the bot is not traveling exactly the way that I wish it would, but I was doing it from the ground before, so let's just wait for him to come back around. It just takes a long time for him to come back around. The other thing with Lucio, and the reason why this is important, is like Lucio is typically on a wall somewhere, which makes him very difficult to not only hit, but also changes the variance in his shot. So Lucio having a 4-round burst weapon is actually better for him, because the amount of times that you will actually hit a shot on target with Lucio is actually greater, because he has a 4-round burst compared to like if he were Baptiste and had a 3-round burst weapon. And the reason for that is because like the distance between him and the target is changing very rapidly most of the time when he is wall riding, because like not only is the elevation changing, but the distance between you and them is changing, because typically you're riding in one direction or another, right? Either closer to or farther away from the target, and because of that, it's going to alter how the weapon works. And so, with him having a 4-round burst, it actually means that you will hit more shots on target than you would if he had a 3-round burst, because your potential for actually hitting those shots is greater, right? So as I kind of move onto that target, you can see that the shots, while not all of them will hit, we're actually able to land a larger amount of them even while moving, and that is because he fires 4 instead of 3. Now, that being said, he deals less damage per shot than somebody like a Baptiste, so there's a little bit of variance in the way that he works. When we swap over to Lifeweaver, Lifeweaver is functionally the same as Sojourn in the travel time between his thorns and his and reaching the target, right? So almost exactly the same as Sojourn, if not exactly the same as Sojourn, compared to Lucio, who fires and the shots take a little bit longer to actually reach the target. So as I throw this pedal, I'm gonna show you how the shot leads very similarly to a Sojourn, whereas with Lucio you need to aim slightly farther in front of them, because the Lifeweaver thorns are, not only are they smaller, they're actually more accurate over longer range, and their damage drop-off appears to be 0, which is like another thing to keep in mind when you're playing Lifeweaver. You can use his primary fire from incredible distances and still get a large amount of value out of him, because he doesn't seem to have any damage drop-off range at all. And while that means that up close, he is functionally less useful than a character that would be dealing more damage up close, that means that at range you can get the same amount of value out of him, which actually helps with his kit, which is typically used from a pretty long range scenario anyway, right? The other thing about Lifeweaver is that his shots always go exactly where his reticle says, unless the target is moving, and then you need to kind of put it in front of them, right? And as I gently pan the aim to the right, you'll see that the travel time is not too bad. And again, I can compare this to Sojourn, whose travel time is functionally similar. Almost exactly the same, if not exactly the same as Lifeweaver. So if you're used to playing Lifeweaver in general, you'll be able to transfer those skills over to playing Sojourn, at least as far as the primary fire is concerned. Now, the other thing about Lifeweaver is that the damage that he deals is actually heavily significant. However, he has he's one of the only characters in the game with a weapon swap, and Mercy being the other one who has a weapon swap where she has to pause before actually being able to shoot, right? So as we swap between the weapon for Mercy and we swap between the staff and the actual gun, I am holding down the trigger, and you can see that there's actually a pause between when you can actually fire the weapon. That is the same with Lifeweaver, where if you are healing, there is a small amount of time in between pressing the button and when he will actually fire the thorns. Now, that time is different between Mercy and Lifeweaver, because the Mercy can't actually heal while swapping weapons, whereas Lifeweaver, if he's charging up, he can, as the travel of his heal is actually traveling to the target, swap and very quickly, and of course I didn't have it because I don't have an actual target that I can send a heal to, he can actually send the heal and be swapping over to damage in roughly the same amount of time that it would take for Mercy, but he is getting actually kind of like double the value out of it, because in the travel time for the heal, he's actually minimizing his downtime by throwing the heal and then using the immediate time to swap to the weapon. Lifeweaver thorns are better at mid-range because of the spread on his thorns after 20 shots. Let me see. You're right, it does. Spicy One, you're right. It does have a very small amount of reticle bloom. It's called bloom. So the bloom on his shots do actually kick in after a small amount of time there. You can see the weapon gradually grow in height. That being said, or in diameter even, the reticle slowly growing in diameter. That being said, the variance on his spread is actually very tight, similar to that of like a Sombra. If we swap over to Sombra, you can see that their reticle is functionally very similar, although Sombra's spread is a lot larger than Lifeweaver. Very similar starting point, right? And then we swap back over to Lifeweaver. You can see very similar, but when it does spread, his spread is actually significantly smaller than something like that of a Sombra, so he maintains accuracy pretty well over longer distances. The other thing you need to remember is like the hit scan versus projectile nature of Lifeweaver mean that even though he does have a spread, like with the fact that it's kind of tight, and also the fact that his bullets have travel time, the amount of bullets that you're actually landing on target compared to somebody like a Sombra is actually going to be more, because like on a stationary target it would be roughly the same, right? But because targets are constantly moving inside of Overwatch, you're going to hit functionally more bullets with Lifeweaver than you will with somebody like Sombra from the same distance, because the moving target will catch more of the thorns. It's more likely that they will catch more of the thorns. Also, as we get farther away, and like I try and make these targets as small as possible, you're seeing that we're still getting largely the same amount of targets, shots on target. Even from this very large distance, right? We're still getting full headshots if you listen to the dings. Still getting full headshot damage, compared to like a Sombra, who, again, is like just the one that I can simulate the reticle the most with. You can hear the difference in the amount of times she's actually hitting the head compared to Lifeweaver. And again, this has to do with not only the fact that she's using a submachine gun, so the spread is a little bit larger, but also that she is a hit scan weapon compared to projectile DPS. When you look at Ana's rifle, which I talked a little bit about earlier, Ana's rifle actually deals the same amount of damage regardless of whether you're aimed down sights or not, and the weapon can't actually crit. So it has no headshot multiplier, which is good and bad for Ana. It's bad insofar as that it means that if you're incredibly accurate and you hit the head, you're not necessarily being rewarded for that. However, it's good because in the mid-season patch here in Season 10, where tanks are going to get the negative 25% damage to critical hits, the negative 25% damage to crits won't actually affect Ana at all. And because of that, her damage over time, while it will be affected by the armor change, her damage over time from her primary fire is actually going to be more than if she had actually was like a critical damage multiplier. So because all of her damage is damage over time, she will effectively have her damage reduced based on the total damage of the shot and not based on the damage of like the single shot, as if it were a I don't know what to call it, as a direct damage compared to a damage over time, right? So the damage over time gets reduced on its own in total compared to like a Cassidy, whose damage will be reduced on the total as well, but it doesn't account for as big of a difference here because she doesn't have the. It's pretty hard to explain, actually. It's very hard to explain. So, when the armor changes change, we will be seeing the difference in damage go from a 30% total damage reduction to a 5 damage reduction up to 50% of the total shot. So, a character like Tracer, who deals less damage per bolt, or per bullet, will actually be affected greater than a character like Cassidy, who deals a larger burst damage per bullet, right? So the 5 damage less on a Cassidy is going to be significantly less impactful than it will be against a Tracer. That being said, the direct damage is actually impacted differently than the damage over time, where the damage over time for Ana will actually have its damage reduced based on the total amount. So I forget exactly how much damage Ana does per shot, but it will be that much damage minus 5, like it is with Cassidy. However, because she doesn't crit, Cassidy will be at a greater disadvantage with the 25% reduction in critical shots compared to an Ana, whose massive damage will not be impacted at all by the reduction in critical damage. So, again, a little bit difficult to explain there, but the difference between Ana's kit is actually her scope. So when she is firing from the hip, her weapon is a projectile. So she's firing these darts, and they take time to travel to the target, and this is how you are able to determine how far you need to lead the shot with Ana when firing from the hip, which means that firing on close-range targets from the hip is going to be functionally faster at either healing or damaging them than it will be to fire on longer-range targets, because again, as I back all the way up here, you're going to see that it takes time for the dart to actually reach, right? Whereas when you aim down sights with Ana, her weapon becomes a hit scan weapon, which means that it instantly deals the damage whether, like, based on whether or not your reticle was actually on the target. So from here, as soon as I press the button, we're seeing the damage actually engage. Whereas when we're hip firing, there is the travel time between each shot. And that is kind of the only difference with Ana, because like normally characters would experience more damage drop-off from farther away. Ana actually doesn't have that, so it doesn't matter how far away she is from the target. If she hits, she will deal the same amount of damage as if, even if she were like 5 meters or 500 meters away, right? So 2 and 3, and that target dies, right? And then same here. 1, 2, 3, and the target dies. The exact same amount of damage from any distance. However, the hit scan nature means that you are going to be a more effective, faster target if you are able to aim down sights with Ana compared to firing from the hip. And that is, that's kind of useful to understand. With Mercy, Mercy actually has the largest aim assist of any weapon in the game, and because of that, you can be less accurate and still maintain critical accuracy. So you can see I am not on the soldier's head, right? But when I fire, I am still able to get the critical damage, and that is because Mercy has the largest aim assist, and this is one of the only characters where aim assist really comes into play. You can see that as I get farther away, it takes more and more distance before I'm actually not getting the headshot on the soldier. You can see I am not even on the soldier with the center mass anymore, and I'm still maintaining that critical shot with Mercy. And again, Mercy is one of those characters as well that has a smaller amount of drop-off range, so she's able to, if she has any drop-off range at all, it's a little bit hard to tell, but as you get to the longer distances, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kills, shots to kill, even from here, but as you get closer, still 5 shots to kill. So as I close the gap here, we're just going to come all the way up here. 1, 2, 3, 4... still 5 shots to kill, right? So, she has the greatest, this is called a margin of error. She has the greatest margin of error of any character in the game, and because of that, you are able to hit shots from a pretty ridiculous distance away, and you can see my reticle is not even on the soldier really anymore, and I'm still able to snag the body shot, and if I aim above him, again, not on him at all, just barely inside, just the tip of his hair is inside of the reticle, and we're still able to hit the critical shot there with Mercy. So for people that are not mechanically skilled, they have a large amount of forgiveness on this character compared to somebody like a Sojourn with her railgun or a Baptiste with his primary fire. The aim assist on Mercy's weapon is massive. Genuinely massive. When we swap over to somebody like Kiriko, you're going to notice that Kiriko has travel time between her kunai actually being thrown and hitting the target, and because of that, you know that you need to, again, lead the shot with these projectile weapons to be able to hit people from far away. As the moving target is farther and farther away, you need to lead the shot more and more, right? And in doing so, you're going to be able to hit targets that are moving from greater distances, right? And the other thing about Kiriko is that she has no damage drop-off range, so a 2-shot from any distance will functionally, not with the 250 HP buffs, but will functionally almost kill any target in the game, or any, like, 250 HP target in the game. I'm just going to try and get myself over to, like, one of these higher ground positions so that I can show you how it works from farther away. Try and hit this soldier from all the way back here, right? Even from this distance, the exact same amount of damage on him, 0 damage drop off on Kiriko, and because of that, she also gets to benefit from these longer range shots, even if she is slightly accurate from a very, very long distance because of how small the target is. She is able to put in a massive amount of value regardless of the distance she is from the target, because she is she functionally has no damage drop-off, right? However, what she does have is a massive critical hit multiplier. You can see how many shots it takes to kill this soldier as I pepper him in the wiener with the kunai here. You're going to see it is a massive difference in the amount of damage that it deals compared to the headshot, which we're just going to show you. One in the dick, one in the head. Gigantic critical multiplier on Kiriko compared to her body shot multiplier, which that is important to understand because that means that the more mechanically skilled you are on Kiriko, functionally the more damage and value you will get with her up to a certain point, right? Because you're never going to get more value than just hitting the head, right? And the same thing goes with Zenyatta. Zenyatta has functionally no damage drop-off, so as I shoot from this far away, hang on. As I shoot from all the way back here, 1, 2, 3 shots to the head to kill with Zen. And even from up close, still 3 shots to the head. 1, 2, 3. Exactly the same damage regardless of how far away he is. However, Zen has the ability to fire forever, well, like, assuming he has ammo, with 0 bloom. And his weapon bloom is important because that means that you are maintaining accuracy regardless of how far away the target is. And but the only thing about Zen is that he has travel time on his orbs. So the travel time is functionally the same as the thorns on Lifeweaver or the primary fire on Sojourn insofar as that it is fast, right? The kunai also the exact same travel time. So if you are a Zenyatta user, enjoyer, then you can functionally get the same amount of value from Kiriko using the same muscle memory that you have already built up with your Zenyatta play. You know that you can do the exact same amount of damage across all distances. You can deal the exact same amount of threat regardless of how far away you are. However, the Zen body shot to critical multiplier is not nearly as large as Kiriko. So if I hit them in the dick with Zen, you can see then I hit them in the head. Not quite as big of a difference there with Zenyatta as it is with Kiriko. And I'm just going to kill this soldier here so that I can show you the amount of body shots that you get with Zen. 6, right? And then as you hit the head, 1, 2, 3. So functionally double damage, but not as big of a difference there as Kiriko. 3, 1, 2. And you can lead his travel times exactly the same, or you can treat his travel time exactly the same as you would be with your Lifeweaver Thorns or your Sojourn Bullets, and the same thing with Kiriko's headshots. So if you're using any of these characters, you're going to find that as you swap between roles and you flex over to different roles, you're going to see that a large amount of your muscle memory carries over because, like, they not only do they have the same travel time, but the damage is the same regardless of how far away they are, which means the value they have is the same, and the amount that you need to lead your shot is the same across Sojourn, across Lifeweaver, across Zenyatta, across Kiriko. These are all the exact same travel distance and or travel speed and maintaining maximum damage across multiple meters worth of damage fall off. No damage fall off on these characters, which is important to understand. I think I'm getting better at being aggressive with Lucio. My damage is always 5 or 6k plus, and my heals are matching my damage. Hell yeah, bro. And it takes practice, it takes muscle memory, because Lucio is one of the highest skill ceiling characters in the game, because not only is his, like, gun kind of unique in that way, right, but his movement is unique, which means, like, to maintain accuracy on him while you're doing crazy stuff requires more muscle memory built up. But the damage that he deals is incredibly significant when you are accurate. So the better you get at it, the more aggressive you'll be able to be with Lucio, even from longer distances, and still not worry about maintaining that accuracy, right? And when you really start understanding his spread and his travel time between his weapon, you're going to be able to hit shots that are just ridiculously far away and land all 4 crits, right? And again, like I said before, his damage is better because he fires 4 in his pulse compared to if he only fired 1 or 2 in his pulse and dealt more damage. It's actually more likely that you will gain damage on target as Lucio because he fires 4. So I think that covers everybody. The only other thing is, like, Brig, but, like, Brig doesn't have a critical damage multiplier. You can swing on her from right about that 5 meter distance. It's like 6 meters, I think. and then you can hit people with the primary fire. The flail is the only thing that you need to get used to, and that hits from a decent distance away, and then you can use that as a boop. But the flail doesn't have a critical multiplier or anything like that, so even if you hit them in the head, the exact same damage from short distances as well as long. So, like, the kind of less to talk about with Brig. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is Sojourn's Railgun. Sojourn's Railgun takes her primary fire is a projectile weapon, where her railgun is a hit scan weapon. So it will go exactly where you aim it, regardless of how far away you are, and you don't need to lead the shot with the railgun, which is a little bit, increases the skill ceiling for her just a little bit, because as targets are moving away, you know that you need to be aiming in front of them to lead the shots to be where they are, but then when you're trying to fire the railgun, you need to be precise and on point with where the bullet actually goes. So it's just something to keep in mind when you are using her from longer distances, is the change up in the projectile to the hit scan nature of her weapon. And it's a little bit similar to Ana in that way, where the weapon itself changes from a projectile to a hit scan based on what you're doing. However, obviously, Ana can't hit criticals, and this is another character that has a massive variance in the amount of damage they deal based on the crit or not, right? So if we hit with the body shot with the railgun, you can see that it takes about half of Soldier's health. We're just going to kill him, and then we'll fill this back up. And you compare it to the headshot with the railgun, and you're going to see that it deals most of his hit points worth of damage, right? So just a tickle's worth remaining compared to the body shot, which is only roughly half of his hit points. A massive critical damage multiplier for Sojourn, and that's something that you need to keep in mind, which means that as you get better with the character, you will increase the amount of value that you're able to put out exponentially the more mechanically skilled you are with her, compared to like an easier to use character like a Zenyatta, or like Zenyatta is a perfect example actually, because he's getting kind of the very similar amounts of damage even from longer distances here. You're able to maintain headshots and maintain your damage drop off. It doesn't actually require you to lead the shot as much. He maintains his projectile nature across both his primary fire and his secondary fire, which his secondary fire, I guess I should talk about a little bit, needs to charge up and has the potential to one-hit characters even at the 250 HP threshold. But again, this is a travel time projectile weapon, so you need to aim the shot. However, it has a large amount of aim assist on the right click. So if you look, I am aiming off of the soldier's head, and you're going to see that most of these shots still hit him in the head regardless, and I'm still getting the precision damage multiplier there, right? And so Zenyatta a little bit similar to Mercy in that regard, insofar as that you can be pretty far away, and the aim assist will do a lot of the work for you. You can see I'm barely even on the soldier's character model anymore, and I'm still landing crits. Pretty wild. I forgot to talk about Junker Queen when I talked about shotgun characters earlier. You're going to see that Junker Queen has no pellet, has no weapon bloom while she's firing her shotgun. This is important because you know that you are going to get a very similar pellet spread regardless of being up close to a target or far away from a target, whereas with Reaper, the larger the distance between you and the target, the greater the pellet spread. You can see as the shots are hitting all the way outside of his actual fire here, they're not actually even hitting inside of the reticle anymore from a certain distance compared to Queen. And we swap back over to Queen, and you can see that they are all still within the reticle, even from this far away, right? Similar to D.Va in that regard. However, the Queen has a larger base damage of her shotgun compared to the D.Va, whatever they're called, the D.Va cannons, whatever, those are functionally shotguns as well, but Queen has a larger base damage, and because of that, as she gets closer, she's going to deal a massive chunk of the target's health compared to a D.Va who is going to deal a far, far smaller amount of the target's health with a single shot. And that is based on the fire rate of the weapon. You can see that her fire rate is significantly lower than D.Va, and as I swap over to D.Va, you're going to see what I'm talking about. A much faster firing shotgun with D.Va's weapon compared to Queen. Queen also has to reload, and because D.Va has infinite ammo, that also means that D.Va will functionally need to have less damage per shot because she never has to worry about the downside of reloading. So in a game design perspective, that's how they balance these types of things, is that the reload is factored in to how powerful a weapon is, and whether or not it has to reload is also factored in. So you're going to see that the Queen can actually two-hit targets as she barrel stuffs them, but can continue to two-hit targets even at roughly 5 meters away. And as we back up to 10 meters, you're going to see that becomes less and less likely as the spread goes around the actual target themselves. You see now it's a 3-shot, and even if you try and get them inside of the reticle by aiming down a little bit and getting more of their player model inside of the reticle, it's still not going to give you that 2 shots because the damage drop-off is coming into play past that 5-meter mark. So as we get to the 10-meter mark, you're going to see damage drop-off goes up to 3 shots to kill. And of course, it didn't give me the 3 shots right there, but it's functionally 3 shots to kill, right? And as we go to the 15-meter mark, it becomes significantly less powerful, requiring 4 or 5 shots to kill, even when you are on target the entire time. And as you can see, as I am aiming onto the soldier's head with the center mass of the reticle, the spread of the shotgun is actually going largely above and around him, and because of that, it is taking a much, much greater amount of shots to actually kill him. Whereas if we take the spread and we put more of the soldier's body inside of the reticle, even though we're no longer aiming for the head, we're actually decreasing the amount of shots it takes to kill because more of the pellets are functionally hitting the target, right? So that's kind of how Queen works. Very similar to Roadhog, except that she does not have the very tightly grouped spread of the shots that go out for a Roadhog. Whereas, again, I can pull up Roadhog and show you that as you fire Roadhog shot, the bulk of his pellets are centered around the middle reticle, right? You can see there's a large amount of them around that center reticle, whereas they spread out farther. So you're getting more damage on point for Roadhog if your center reticle is on center mass. And as we swap over to a character like Wrecking Ball, you can see that Wrecking Ball has a large amount of bloom, but only after a certain amount of shots, right? It takes like roughly half of his entire magazine before you start seeing the bloom. And basically what this is forcing you to do is it's forcing you to stay close to the target to maintain your damage. And while you back up, as you back up away from the target, you're going to see your damage with Wrecking Ball gets less and less and less, and that's because he is essentially using submachine guns like a Tracer or a Sombra is, and because of that, like, the damage drop-off is more steep compared to something like an assault rifle, like a Widowmaker has, or an assault rifle like a Sojourn has, right? So the Wrecking Ball damage becomes less and less powerful. The damage drop-off is greater the farther away you are from the target, and because of that, you just need to be kind of closer to the target to maintain maximum effectiveness. Now, as you barrel stuff with Wrecking Ball, he does not actually get more powerful in the close range. So there's like a sweet spot with his damage where you can be to maintain all of your damage, and it's roughly 5 meters, right? And you will maintain the same time to kill with Wrecking Ball, regardless of whether you are barrel stuffing them or if they are roughly 5 meters away. Basically the same time to kill. I also heard Lucio damage is comparable to Zen even with Discord if he's hitting headshots. Yeah, so that's the difference between Zen. Zen gets a buff to his damage when you are hitting targets hit with the Discord orb, and you can see that he is able to two-shot these targets. It's 20% more, right? But it's also 20% more from his entire team. So for Zenyatta, he is not able to two-hit the 250 HP characters, but similar to a Sojourn's Railgun, it actually takes them down to just a small amount of additional hit points, smaller even than Sojourn's Rail, because the 3-shot becomes, while it's still a 3-shot, it becomes like 2 and a tickle, or like 2 and a melee, whereas if he does not have the Discord on him, you cannot actually kill him with the melee. I take it back, you can actually kill him with the melee, and I believe the melee is 30 damage, right? So that means that this takes him down to, this is like 110 per shot with a 30 damage melee. So, unless I'm wrong and it's like 50 damage melee, it might be 50. I don't think Zen has a larger amount of damage on the melee. I think he only has the additional knockback on the melee itself. And melee is something that you utilize more on characters that fight from close range regardless. So you're not really going to be seeing that as much on like a Cassidy or like a Hanzo. Like the melee is not something that comes into play nearly as often, right? Where when you use Hanzo, Hanzo has no damage drop off, but at this current moment cannot actually one-hit 250 HP targets, so it requires him to either hit a second shot or have some follow-up from his team, and I think that this is mainly to differentiate him from the Widowmaker players, because otherwise, before the Season 9 damage or health bumps, the Widowmaker and the Hanzo headshot was effectively the same against squishy targets insofar as that it killed them in one hit, right? So Hanzo, no damage drop off on him, but because he has a projectile compared to the hit scan nature of a Widowmaker's sniper rifle, you actually do have to lead the shot to be accurate. So as targets are moving farther away, you need to gain a greater amount of space between your reticle and the actual target, so that you can utilize his damage from farther away. And his storm arrow actually has a large amount of damage fall off, if I remember right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I think I might have missed a headshot there, so let's just wait. Let's just make sure. 1, 2. Yeah, so I'm not hitting headshots there. So that is the arc. Bang. Okay, so the storm arrow doesn't appear to have damage fall off. So the one thing that you do have to account for with Hanzo is the amount of arc. On the targets that are farther away, the arc is going to be greater, so you need to aim higher, where if I put this directly on their head, you're going to see I get a body shot, whereas if I aim slightly above their head, the arc of the arrow will actually fall down onto the target's head, which is important to understand, because you need to be utilizing this in-game and kind of judging the distance of the targets. The farther away they are, the more distance you need between the Hanzo to actually the bottom of the reticle being above the target's head to actually land the headshot. And that was a good example of a moving target. You need to lead the shots to actually be in front of them to be able to hit the headshot on the target. That was a body shot. That doesn't count. But the idea holds true here, right? And as I let go of the arrow, you're going to see that it takes time for the arrow to travel there. That's functionally similar to like a bow in Skyrim. Very, very similar in that regard. Venture is unique to Season 10. Just got brought into the game, although they have no... they have very heavy damage drop-off insofar as that past, like, the 15-meter range. They actually deal basically, like, functionally no damage compared to being within their optimal range. So this is exactly 15 meters. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then we come into the 10-meter range. We're still looking at that 1, 2, 3, 4. But as I back up even farther, you're going to notice that there's a certain point where it reaches 0, because the shot actually explodes before it reaches the target, and if you do not have them within the optimal damage range, you will functionally be useless in terms of a damage dealer. So for Venture, while they don't have a critical hit multiplier, so you can be right up on them, and I'm just gonna send you flying here. I'm just gonna kill this soldier so that you can see there is no difference between a body shot and a headshot. Exactly the same amount of damage. The shots themselves will deal 0 damage past their like their 15 meter, right around 15 meter intended range. And you can see we're just barely getting a little bit of damage there, but as the soldier gets knocked back very slightly, we are now out of damage range. And I'll just move forward just a little bit. Functionally useless past their intended range. So that's important to understand. Junkrat has no damage fall off on his mines, so whether his mine hits from, or his bombs even, so whether his bombs hit from here or all the way across the map, they're going to deal the same amount of damage, assuming that you direct impact somebody. If they explode near someone, just gonna... If they explode near someone, they will still deal a small amount of damage, but the DI itself has no damage drop-off. So even if they are this far away, or, you know, this far away, the exact same amount of damage. They're actually exploding before they make it to the target. You just raise it slightly. Bang. Right, so as I aim up with Junkrat, you're going to see his damage is exactly the same, even from this far out. It has to do with whether or not you catch the direct impact or whether you are actually hitting with the explosion portion of Junkrat's grenade. And you can see that there is a decent amount of distance between the grenade actually exploding and where you will actually get damage with Junkrat, and that is also important to understand, because even if you're just firing kind of in a general area of people, you can still get some value out of the character, but he has one of the harder weapons in the game to actually get value out of, because not only does he have an arc and a projectile-based weapon, his arc is actually less than something like a Hanzo, and his grenades also bounce, which means that you are having to effectively account for more variables when firing as Junkrat than you are with other characters. And that's why the main way to kill people with Junkrat for the longest time was to hit them once with primary fire and follow up with the mine explosion. Although that no longer kills here in Season 10, it may after the mid-season patch where they are going to buff Junkrat. We don't actually know what they're going to do. Cell, what's going on? How are you? How's your morning going? So as we utilize Junkrat's primary fire, you can see that the DI is going to 2-hit, almost 2-hit, basically no matter where you are. But the 250 HP characters are actually a little bit better off than like somebody like a Tracer, who will still get instantly deleted because of her lower health pool, right? So 1 and 2, Tracer instantly gone. You compare that to like a Reaper or a Cassidy, who have more hit points, right? Then we're like 1, we're 2, and you can see how much health the Reaper has left comparatively, but you could still 2-hit and hit him with the mine, and even before the buff, which we're assuming is going to make the 2-hit work again, same thing with Cassidy, you hit them, still a decent amount of health left, but you could still detonate them with the mine. I don't know why you wouldn't just fire again, though. The mine is a little bit more instant, a little bit easier to hit on Junkrat, and I think that's potentially why they removed it to begin with. That being said, again, Junkrat has one of the harder kits to actually use in the game. Not much, just slept in a bit this morning. How was your show yesterday? How was your event that you put on? Genji, which, this is going to sound weird, but Genji actually works very similar to Baptiste in that Genji effectively has a pulse rifle weapon, where the Baptiste... Hang on, it's about to kick me out of the practice range. I'll go back in here. Baptiste has a pulse rifle weapon insofar as that it fires a 3-round burst. Genji also fires a 3-round burst, although it doesn't appear to be from a gun. Effectively, it is exactly the same. So, as we fire on people with BAP, as we shoot this wall, you're going to see that he has a recoil, vertical recoil, as he fires, compared to Genji, the exact same place, right? No recoil pattern. No bloom either. But, as you pan the reticle, it actually blooms naturally by the amount that you move your reticle in the throw animation. So, where Baptiste is utilizing a pulse rifle that is a hit scan, all of the shots are instantly hitting. Genji is using a pulse rifle that is a projectile, and because of that, the amount that you move your reticle is directly representative of how much spread you'll actually have between each shuriken landing. My event was good. A lot of people showed up and everyone had fun. I'll send photos of the toy cakes I made, plus an actual cake I custom ordered from someone. Hell yeah, I want to see. So when you are using Genji, you're going to see that Genji's damage remains the same at even extreme distances. Right, so with the pulse rifle style of his play, you're going to see that even from the longest distances, if you hit 2 bursts, you are going to be able to kill a target even from all the way back here. Right, and that deals most of a bot's hit points. Let's go ahead and test that against like a, not a Tracer. Let's put it on Soldier 76 again, so that we can get just a standard 250 HP character. You're going to see that it will 2-hit even on a 200 HP character, 250 HP character. We're going to jump up, and we're going to create some distance between us and the soldier. same thing. And this is actually with missing one shot as well. So the damage is enough that you will be able to 5 shuriken people in the head from any distance. Right, and you can hear on the second throw, there's only 2 dinks. And as we get farther away, those dinks will become more and more evident because of the travel time. So you are effectively able to two-hit characters even from far away, even if you miss, and that means that Genji has a little bit of forgiveness in his kit, similar to the aim assist on Mercy or Zenyatta. But that being said, his right-click functions significantly differently, more like a shotgun with a largely horizontal recoil. You can see that as you throw it, not only does it fire faster than his primary fire, it also spreads the farther away the target is, right? So just like a shotgun, Genji's right click functions effectively the exact same way in that the spread gets larger the farther away you are from the target. However, Genji's projectile nature of his weapon compared to a shotgun, which all of the shotguns in the game are hit scan, aside from this one example right here. Torbjorn's shotgun is a hit scan, Reaper is a hit scan, Junker Queen is also a hit scan, Diva hit scan. All of these are hit scans compared to the projectile nature of the Genji's shotgun-like right click. You're going to see that the spread becomes greater and greater because of the travel time between the shots actually landing. But that also means that you're able to do certain things that you can't do with other characters, depending on how spaced apart the enemies you're fighting are. If you are fast enough and enemies are low health, you can actually throw a couple of right clicks in their general direction and sometimes catch a double kill, where that is very, very unlikely with the primary fire. You would have to be moving in their direction and accurately predict the amount of space between you, right? So, something to think about with Genji is that while he has a very small reticle and 0 bloom, you can see you can fire forever. His reticle never gets larger, so he maintains accuracy across all distances. The bloom is significantly larger on his right click, and even though the reticle does not actually change, right? So, the amount of damage and value that you're able to get off the right click is directly representative of how close they are. So, if you are extremely close to a target, you can get a lot of value out of it. And you can actually 2-hit them in the head from very close distances, assuming that 5 out of the 6 shurikens hit. But the thing about Genji is that because of the nature of his projectile weapon, some of his weapon can actually be caught up in the rest of the character model of the enemy. And because of that, as you hit from certain angles, you're not going to get the 5 headshots that you would need. So, like, right here, you can see, even though I'm on the head, it's not actually giving me the full headshot damage. Interesting, right? And that's, again, based on his projectile nature of his weapon. You sent it in Discord? Okay, let me see. Memes and other. Let me make this larger so that I can actually see it. Aw, those are adorable. I love it. I love it. They're very hard to see. Can I open it in a browser? Will that make it larger? Oh yeah, that helped a lot. That helped a lot. All right, so we got some baby dolls. We got some. Looks like it's all very cute stuff. Got some bunnies. I love it. Is all of that edible? It looks really good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not really somebody who eats sweets too much, but it looks really good. And then this is the custom cake you ordered. Happy 20th birthday. Happy 20th birthday, by the way. Cell, I didn't realize that it was your birthday yesterday. Happy 20th birthday. Congratulations. It's not edible. I didn't think so. I mean, I've seen Is It Cake, and, like, they've turned some crazy shit into cake, so you gotta ask, right? It's not your birthday? Alright. That reminds me of Squidward. It's Sunny Angel's birthday. Happy 20th birthday, Sunny Angel. Excuse me. It reminds me of Squidward, where he was super mad and he screamed, "It's not my birthday." If you remember that, that's an extremely obscure reference, but yeah. And then I think we've almost covered everyone. If you look up Sunny Angel, I'll see who they are. All right, let me see. Sunny Angel. Oh, it's the dolls. Got it. Okay. Got it. Well, happy birthday, 20th birthday to the Sunny Angel line of dolls. As a man, I had never seen those before. And like, not only a man, but like a, you know, a man who doesn't play with dolls. I had never seen those before. Or if I had, I didn't know. Alright, so moving on to the primary fire of Sigma. Sigma, like Venture, has a maximum distance that he can actually shoot from, and I believe that maximum distance is 20 meters, but we're going to go over here to the practice range just to make sure that we are at the 20 meters mark and still receiving damage. We are, and as we back away from the 20 meters, now this is around 25 meters. Right, so we're losing out on the damage there. This is 24 meters, and he has a very significant damage drop-off past 20 meters. But within his 20-meter range, Sigma actually deals full damage. So at like 21 meters... I'm just going to wait for it to respawn. At like 21 meters, you're going to see a decent amount of that damage is actually taken away, and it requires a 3-hit. However, as we get into the 20 meters, we're going to be able to 2-hit them, which is effectively 4 shots, but 2 left clicks, right? So... The damage for Sigma, similarly to Venture, becomes non-existent after a certain point, and the damage drop-off on them is also extremely, extremely high. So, in this way, Sigma's damage is actually very similar to Venture's left-click damage. However, the rocks that Sigma throws, or the whatever they are, the shapes that Sigma throws, have a significant amount of travel time and are actually on the slower side, similar to a Lucio pulse rifle, where the Lucio has a slower travel time than like the thorns from a Lifeweaver, or like the shots from a Sojourn's railgun. The Sigma rocks take a large amount of time to actually reach the target, and because of that, you have to account for that. However, similar to a Junkrat grenade, they actually ricochet as well, so we can land them kind of near targets and still get a large amount of value. And let's just kill them so that I can show you from within his effective range. You don't even have to actually hit the target, and this is why I always say that Sigma's damage is kind of free, because similar to a Junkrat grenade, it bounces and gets explosion value for being near the target. While it may not be perfect, it is very close to perfect if you are close enough to the target. And again, Sigma can 2-hit up to his effective range of 20 meters. I've been collecting them for years, but they got popular in these past 2 years, so they're harder to find in stores now. Well, thank God you have the ones that you have, right? Your collection is going to be worth a hell of a lot of money here in a few years. So as we look at Arisa's weapon, Arisa has a travel distance on her spear, which is a projectile, and her primary fire also a projectile. However, unlike Sigma, she has no damage drop-off range. So Arisa can shoot from all the way across the map and deal the same amount of damage. You just have to be good about understanding where your target needs to be led, where your shot needs to be led, so that the travel distance between yourself and the target will actually be taken into account, right? So I'm going to utilize this spot here, and I'll shoot this bot as it comes around this corner. And you can see how much farther ahead of the target my reticle actually has to be for me to be able to hit those headshots again. Significantly far away from a moving target. However, when they're closer, you can actually be a lot closer to the target with your reticle. And again, that is leading the shot. So the farther they are away, the more you need to lead the shot. And again, Arisa has no damage drop-off, so you're able to get the full value out of her, even from ridiculously huge distances. This was not always the case. Arisa did have damage drop-off before. We look at somebody like Malga. Malga has pretty hard damage drop-off after a certain amount of distance, right? And you can see, like, I'm using the Burn Them rifle, but as I use the right-click, which is his, like, critical shot rifle, a ridiculously huge amount of shots to actually get on target before Malga actually kills anything. when you are at a certain distance. This is like 50 meters here. And that's to show that the damage drop-off is significant. As we round into his range, which is right around this 30-meter mark, we're going to see that timing drop off significantly, right? The other thing about Mauga is that as you fire with him, you're going to notice that his reticle becomes more accurate the farther away, or the depending on what gun you use, the reticle actually changes. He has no weapon bloom, but it blooms in kind of a different way, where it actually becomes more accurate with the left click and slightly less accurate with the right click. And if you look at the reticle as it changes, you're going to see that the reticle has kind of, I don't know what to call them, like circles inside of the reticle when you use the left click. And whereas the shape of the reticle will change slightly as you use the right click, right? So these are the circles inside of the reticle. No circles, circles, no circles, right? And then as I use the right click, you'll see that the shape of the reticle actually changes to be kind of indented along the sides. And that is actually unique among all the heroes in Overwatch. Nobody has a changing reticle in that way other than Mauga. So what does that mean? What does that effectively work out to? Well, I'm pretty sure that it means that the right click is actually more effective from longer range than the left click is, where the left click will deal the critical damage, will light them on fire even, but be less accurate with its shots. The right click, I believe, maintains its accuracy across even longer ranges. So, interesting stuff. Mauga also has incredible bloom when holding both triggers at the same time, which, as you look, this is firing the left, this is firing the right. When you hold both down, massive bloom, instantly massive bloom. And you'll see that there's also two reticles inside of his default reticle when you're holding both buttons down. And that is the difference in the two miniguns, right? And again, like I said before, the left rifle is actually, I believe, a little bit less accurate over range than the right. So as you hold both down and you see the kind of difference in the two reticles there, you're going to see that the outer reticle, the outer ring, I believe, is the left machine gun, while the inner ring is the right machine gun. A little bit of nuance to his reticle, but again, the only hero in Overwatch that functions this way. Very unique in the way that his reticle kind of changes shape in that way, right? And the bloom that he experiences is extremely significant, so even if you're firing from like 20 meters on a target, you're going to miss a lot of shots because the target is just functionally smaller than his actual reticle, and this becomes worse and worse the farther away you are. So as I stand here at 30 meters, you're going to see that very, very few of these shots are actually reaching the target and dealing their full damage, and so that's something to keep in mind when you are utilizing Mauga. You want to be in closer range, within 15 meters, right, and aiming for center mass when you're holding down both triggers. What center mass is going to be able to let you do is keep the majority of the character model inside of the reticle, and because of the variance in the shot, which is how big the reticle actually gets, the shots can go at any point inside of that reticle, right? Because of the variance in the shots, by aiming for center mass, you're actually going to hit more headshots and maintain your time to kill a little bit better than if you were to aim like at their head. Like if you put the dot in the reticle on their head, it's going to be less likely that you will hit those shots. So these are important things to keep in mind. The Mauga guns function similarly to a shotgun in that regard, insofar as that the both barrels being held down at the same time have a larger shotgun-sized reticle. So that's something to keep in mind. You need to use it as though it is a shotgun within a shotgun's effective range. So one of the other characters that you can liken to Sojourn, you can liken them to the Thorns of Lifeweaver, like the other projectile nature of other characters that I'm spacing on right now. Ramatra is very similar to the damage, not only the damage that the staff puts out compared to like a Sojourn's actual primary fire, is very similar, but the distance, the travel time is actually almost functionally the same. So the amount of leading the shot that you will have to do, if you are good at utilizing Sojourn's primary fire, if you understand by muscle memory the amount that you need to be in front of the target to hit on target, you will functionally be able to make Mauga's staff work because it functions in the exact same way, pretty much. The exact same travel time between targets, and you just need to lead the shot slightly, and the amount of headshot damage that it deals is pretty significant as well. You're going to look as we fire directly into the body. We're looking at like roughly 58 shots or so to be able to kill a target compared to the headshot, which is like 35 shots, right? So a pretty large critical damage multiplier. The other thing about Ramatra is that he has no bloom. So his weapon remains accurate even at extremely long durations of holding the trigger down. The weapon will remain as accurate as it is regardless. Unlike Tracer, who becomes less accurate pretty much immediately, and like Widowmaker, who becomes less accurate over time, right? You can see the weapon bloom outward. The Ramatra staff actually remains just as tight, even if you hold down the entire, I don't know what to call this, magazine, effectively, right? Magazine. So that is kind of how RAM works. The thing about Reinhardt is that he doesn't really have a ranged weapon, so you don't really need to worry about this, but the fire strikes are kind of unique in that they, not only do they have a very slow travel time, even slower than something like Lucio's boop, or Lucio's primary fire, which if you look, this is Lucio's primary fire, compared to the Reinhardt fire strike. Even slower, right? But they go through barriers and they go through multiple targets, and so regardless of their speed, they're actually able to damage multiple targets at a time, which I'm going to show you by charging over here. And then I will send this fire strike down through these three people. And Reinhardt actually gains ultimate charge based on the amount of people he hits inside of his fire strike as well. So he gains additional ultimate charge based on the amount of targets that are actually hit by that. And you can use that to fire through barriers as well. So if a Winston drops a barrier, or if a Sigma drops a barrier, you can use that to fire, or a Ramatra, you can use that to fire through his barriers. All of their barriers are pierced by the fire strike. Kind of unique in that regard. Another thing you can do with Reinhardt, which isn't necessarily aim related as much as it is like how fast is your look sensitivity, but I'm just going to kill this target so that we have everybody at full health here, is you can actually damage people similar to the way that you can damage a target with a melee by quickly panning onto them, which I'll just show you. You can hit multiple targets with the cleave of Reinhardt's swing, but you can actually not have somebody in your initial swing and pan your mouse, your cursor to the side and hit them inside of it, right? So again, I'm gonna kill this target, and you can see the other robot is not in my line of sight, right? But as I hold down the swing, and in doing that, I can show you that the spinning the mouse quickly will allow you to gain more damage out of a character like Reinhardt. And that also works with melees, which I have to switch to a character who has a regular melee to show you that. But like as I do this with Sojourn, I can actually not melee the target, right? Just gonna not melee them, and then hang on. It takes a little bit of practice, right? So you melee off of them. No, there we go. So you melee off of them, and then you quickly pan to the right, and it will actually hit the target. So a little bit difficult to pull off, but that is how melees work in Overwatch, is that you don't actually have to be on them. You can quickly put your reticle over top of them, and it will still damage them with the melee, although it won't be as powerful as the actual melee swing. And if you look, like, I'm not even hitting these guys. I'm not even hitting them with the melee. Melee has ridiculously huge aim assist here in Overwatch, so that is also something to keep in mind, although it deals less and less damage the farther away you are, and if you do the panning over thing, you can actually hit two targets with the melee at the same time. You can hear the two hits, right? And that's kind of how Reinhardt's swings work as well. Using the Winston Tesla cannon is a little bit unique in that his right click is a hit scan, but from very far away. So like, while it will work inside of the reticle like a normal weapon would, almost like Cassidy, you cannot actually get critical damage with it unlike Cassidy. But if you do hit them at any point inside of the reticle, you will be able to get a large amount of burst damage from the Tesla cannon. You just have to wait until the secondary circle fully makes it to the edge of the primary reticle. And in doing so, you're going to be able to get damage on targets who are extremely long range and out of his primary fire range, which is very, very close. I want to say it's like 5 meters or something like that. So let's go over here. We'll try it at 10 meters, and we'll see if we can actually hit targets from this far away. This is 10 meters. No, as we move a little bit closer, just within inside of the 10-meter range, right? And then you can actually hit targets with the Tesla cannon. But the thing about Winston's gun, similar to Reinhardt's swing, is that it actually gets cleave, which means that it can hit multiple targets at once, depending on how many targets there are in your line of sight. So as you get... And you can see that I am just slightly out of the range of the bot on the right. But if I move my cursor slightly to the right, I'm actually able to get both of them from this distance. There's kind of a sweet spot with Winston where the targets need to be away from each other before it will work. But as you get closer, you're going to see that it doesn't quite work. You back up a little bit. Now it's a little bit easier, right? So there's like a sweet spot where Winston is most effective in his cleave ability. And it works better if you are like 5-ish meters away from the target. And again, I don't even have the reticle on them. However, it is an extremely slow damage over time weapon and does not actually kill anything very quickly at all. Does not deal extra damage for being close. It simply gives you the ability to hit more than one target with it. Very interesting regardless, but something that you should keep in mind with Winston is there's the sweet spot, and you can get used to the sweet spot by standing in front of these two bots on the 5-meter line and pointing directly in between them, and this will help you get more kills with your Winston play in-game. This is all kind of important to understand because this is how you make the most out of the character. And again, his secondary fire hits from any distance, from any range, for the same amount of damage, as you can see. It looks like it does actually have a fall off here. So this is 45 meters. This is within 45. This is 40. So up to 40 meters, right? A very long distance. Functionally, the same... Like, it's very unlikely that you're going to be hitting targets from this far away regardless, but functionally at 40 meters or less, you can hit them with the right-click and get the value out of Winston's damage there. Alright, so the next up is Echo, and Echo is unique insofar as the recoil, the shot pattern that Echo uses for her primary fire is different than any other character in the game, because Echo actually utilizes a triangle, and due to her projectile nature, that triangle becomes less and less accurate the farther away you are from the target, excuse me. So, as I put the reticle directly on this target's head, you're going to see that the middle shot, which is where originally will come out of her finger, the middle shot actually goes above this target's head at around like 50 to 55 meters, right? But if I aim down slightly, I'm actually able to hit and get the critical shot and hit for what appears to be all 3 pellets. Inside of the 40-meter range, which is right around where Echo stops being effective, you can hit all three shots on target, and the triangle will expand to roughly the size of a character model, and that way you'll be able to hit the center mass of your reticle will be on their head, and then the remainder of the damage will hit the sides of their character model again. And the closer you get, actually, the more effective this becomes. I'm just going to kill this soldier so that you can see that each one of these separately gets its own critical damage. And because of that, it lets Echo be in a very unique place where she can deal a 3-shot to the head if she is close enough, right? So that's 1, that's 2, 3 to the head, and that even lets you miss one of the shots here. So I'm just going to 1, 2, and then I back up some, right? And I'm just going to, like, from right here, so that the first shot, the top shot, goes above the target's head, and you're still able to get that even from there. So that's her primary fire. Her sticky bombs are a slower projectile, and they take, similar to a Lucio's weapon, they take longer to get to a target, but are less spaced than a Lucio's pulse rifle. And because of that, you can space them out very effectively from long range and hit multiple targets with them if you pan your mouse or your crosshair very quickly, right? And that will give you effective damage across multiple targets, or you can fire directly forward and hit many bolts on a single target, many bombs on a single target, and that will be effective for single target damage. More damage, but less targets hit overall. There's also a small amount of splash damage that happens with Echo's weapons. As you can see, we're able to hit directly in between the two bots, and it will continue to deal basically maximum damage to the two bots, even from this distance, right? So that there's a large amount of forgiveness in the sticky bombs, even if you don't hit directly on target. That being said, when you shoot across the ground, not as effective as when you shoot onto a wall. Actually, it might be the same. This is a 250 HP target compared to these 200 HP bots. So that's probably what the difference is there. So that's with Echo, and then her focusing beam hits from roughly 15 meters. So I'm just gonna still damaging from here, and I'm gonna go fly over to the 20-meter mark here, which we can see on this bot, and you're gonna see that it no longer deals damage, right? But as I come into the 20 meters, right around 15 meters, you're able to get full effectiveness with her focusing beam. And that is important to understand the distance of, because that is going to be your main way to finish off a low health target when you are playing Echo. With Pharah has rockets, and the rockets actually deal a large amount of impact damage. Very large amount of impact damage. When I use them against a 250 HP character, we're looking at 120 damage per rocket, so not quite enough to actually get the kill. However, they also have splash damage, so if they hit near the target, you're going to see that the rockets continue to damage them even from a decent distance away, although the farther away they get from the actual rocket themselves, the less damage the target is actually going to take. But it is still enough. But the one thing you need to keep in mind about this is, what this means is characters like Zarya are going to be getting a large amount of charge off of a Pharah. Even if you are not actually shooting the Zarya inside of her shield, the splash damage will still continue to charge up her beam. And because of that, this is something that you need to keep in mind when utilizing Pharah. The other thing about Pharah is that she's one of the few characters in the game that can actually hurt herself with her own guns. The primary fire can actually deal damage to you in a 20 damage per shot. It actually continues to hit you depending on how far away the blast is from you. Will continue to deal damage to you. That being said, the shots themselves can be used as a way to boost you up into the sky, and in doing so, you're going to be able to get a massive amount of altitude when you combine that with the jump of her whatever the ability is called, the jump jet. If you combine that when shooting the ground and pressing jump yourself, compared to just the jump jet, this is just the jump jet. Large amount, right? And then this is going to be jump plus the jump jet after it cools down here. And then I will show you the jump plus jump jet plus the fire into the ground gives you the largest amount of vertical space. So this is jump plus jump jet. And that gives you a pretty good amount of vertical space, right? And then as this cools down, like I said, I'm going to shoot the ground, jump, and press jump jet at the same time. And you will see that we get the largest amount of possible vertical space out of this combo, which makes this a little bit of a skill maneuver, right? So shoot, jump, and jump jet all at the same time. Gigantic amount of distance there with the jump jet, and that increases the skill ceiling of a Pharah. The other thing that you need to think about is her weapon has a large amount of travel time. So as you're shooting, you need to be leading the shot, and because it is a rocket, the speed that it has is slow, and because of the speed being slow, you need to lead the shot more on moving targets than you would on other, like, stationary targets. And I believe that the speed of the target is specifically, the speed of the rocket is specifically to show that the rocket has weight, right? Whereas, like, a smaller thing, like the nanites from a staff of a Ramatra, take a very small amount of time to travel to the target. The rockets are large and have weight, and because of that, they take a larger amount of time to actually travel to the target. But one thing that you can do with Pharah is fire directly at the feet of the target, and still gain a lot of value out of firing at the target's feet. And this is similar to a soldier's helix rocket insofar as that you can, while you can direct impact them, you can also fire it at their feet and still get a large amount of the value, and it is actually more likely to hit a target when you hit them in the feet. That a target that is moving around is more likely to take damage from the shot on the ground than they are to take damage from a direct impact, and because of that, it's important for you to understand how these two things work. This is incredibly useful knowledge for when you are actually playing soldier, insofar as that if you jump and shoot at their feet, the likelihood of you getting some damage rather than them dodging the helix rocket completely is much higher than if you were to shoot it directly at a moving target. And then in addition to that, the helix rocket also has travel time. Helix rockets can also be used to boost soldier up to a higher ground as well, so if you combine it with the jump, the helix rocket will launch soldier in the sky a little bit, although he does take a little bit of damage from that. And again, this is rockets. This is showing off how rockets work in general. You want to fire rockets at something's feet. Travel time, same thing with Farah's rockets. Very slow to show that it is a rocket and it has weight, right? As we move over into the beam weapons, we only have two characters that we really have to cover here, which is Symmetra and Zarya. Now, Symmetra's primary fire is a very close range weapon. However, the turrets can actually hit from a pretty decent distance away. You can see that this is larger than 5 meters away from the target. And this is from 10 meters. You can see that it's still getting value even from 10 meters away. If we kill this soldier, you can see that it's still able to hit targets even 10 meters away, which means that you are able to put your sim turrets into places that otherwise would feel like they are too far away to actually be effective. And you can gain a large amount of value off of them because of that, right? You can see how far away this soldier is from this turret. A very, very large amount of distance there. And the thing about the turrets is they don't actually deal more damage for being close either. So as we put this here, we can see that it's draining the exact same amount of health on the soldier that it was before. And so we're just going to go ahead and toss all three of these kind of off into the distance here. Unfortunately, you can't recall your turrets once they're gone, which is unfortunate. I kind of wish you could. And of course, I hit it right there. All right, well, we're going to wait for these turrets to recharge, and as we're doing that, I'm going to make my way down to the practice range bot that has a more noticeable floor. I just want to make sure that I'm not accidentally getting any kills here. 2. And you see it's still up there killing soldier. So I have to throw one more off into the distance here so that it will stop killing that soldier up there. Okay, so from here you can see this is the bruh. Alright, so I'm just gonna swap off of Sim. And I'll swap over to Soldier. And then I'll swap back over to Symmetra. And that way it should delete the turrets that were there. Okay, so with Sim and her primary fire, this is the shortest range beam in the game, and I believe this only works from 15 meters and in. You can see this is 20 meters away, and I'm getting 0 damage on the target. This is the shortest range beam. With the 15 meters in, you can see I'm just outside of 15 meters right now, still not getting that damage here, but as I move in slightly, and I approach this 10-meter range, right around 12 meters, you're starting to see this damage with Symmetra. And as this damage ramps up, you're going to see the beam actually grow in size, right? And it also grows in, the sound that it makes, so it sounds like it is a more intense beam. And you're going to watch as her weapon kind of resets back down to normal. Small beam, medium beam, large beam, and that is evidenced by the indicator on the back of her gun showing you how much charge on the beam you actually have. At the largest amount of charge, her beam deals 195 damage per second, which is extremely, extremely significant and able to absolutely melt certain tanks if they are playing within her effective range. Most tanks don't have to play within that range, but it is a viable strategy in certain scenarios, right? So if we put it on like a Roadhog, you can see that the Roadhog takes a small amount of damage at first, then a ramping amount of damage, and then a very large amount of damage over time as it gets to the larger beam. All the way up to 195 damage per second. And as you run out of ammo, you will see that the indicator starts blinking red. That is to show you that you are out of ammo. That does not actually affect how big or damaging your beam actually is. So again, this is Symmetra from 12 meters, right about 12 meters, just inside of the 15-meter range, able to grab some damage there. Right, and so this is the closest range beam in the game. And then as we move over to Zarya, Zarya is the mid-range beam in the game. She can utilize her primary fire from a little bit farther out than Sim, which I could show you from here. We're not getting that. We're not getting that damage. But as we move a little bit closer in, this is farther out, right at that 15-meter range mark for Zarya, able to snag the damage that that she can there. Zarya's beam is actually not very powerful to start. Same with Symmetra. However, Zarya can charge her own beam by taking damage. And the more she charges it, the more damage she will actually do. She charges it by putting up the shield and taking damage, and as the shield breaks or gets close to breaking, she will deal more damage, respectively, based on how much damage the actual the shields took during its time, up to its threshold. And then when Zarya is fully charged, she is like basically the highest damage dealing character in the entire game, and she is only effective within this 15-meter range, right? And because of that, you're gonna have to respect her when she is fully charged. You'll see her glow red, and her if she's on the enemy team, or glow blue if she is on your team. And the amount of damage that she will put out will straight up melt pretty much every character in the whole game. She is unstoppable when she is fully charged. Just incredibly damaging, and a devastating target to have to try and deal with. She will melt pretty much everyone, like I said. Tanks included. Zarya is like the queen of the amount of damage she can put out consistently. And then we go over to Moira, and it's unclear as of yet whether or not her beam is an actual beam or if it is a damage over time. However, it is able to hit from massive distances. You see, as I get closer to this 20-meter range, right at 20 meters, we are able to get full value out of Moira's beam, and Moira's beam deals the same amount of damage no matter how long it is on target. However, it has the longest range of all of the beam weapons. And because of that, you can utilize Moira to duel people and keep them outside of their effective range, assuming that you are in your sweet spot, right? So against a Zarya or against a Symmetra, the Moira can outbeam them by outranging them and never letting them get close enough to the point where they can actually damage her. And in addition to that, the beam from Moira actually heals you over time as well for a small amount of health, which I will show you here. I'll get Moira damage down pretty far, and then I'll start beaming the target in front of me, and you can see that it siphons health from the target and actually gives it to Moira for a small amount of healing over time. I'm going to let her drop below 100 hit points. And you can see she is actually raising in health as the target is still hitting her. Right, and because of that, not only does she have the greatest range of any beam character, she also has the greatest utility of any beam character, because no one else can actually heal themselves while they are utilizing their primary fire in that way. Reaper has a very small heal when utilizing his primary fire, but it's nowhere near as powerful as the heal from the Moira beam, and it also happens based on the amount of pellets that he hits. So as I damage myself with Reaper, and I take him down to the negative 100 hit point pool, you're going to see that he heals very small amounts of damage based on the damage that he deals, compared to the Moira, who is healing and siphoning health the entire time, right? It actually feels more significant with the larger health pools, but it's based on the amount of damage that he deals. So if I were to be playing Reaper and actually do that damage from farther away, we're letting this damage hit me, and it's draining me down. And as I shoot them from far away, you will see that because less of his pellets are actually hitting the target, his heal actually heals for less, unlike Moira, who gains the same amount of health as long as she's hitting someone, right? very small amount of health gain on Reaper when he is far away from the target, compared to Moira, who takes a massive amount of hit points away from the target every time that she ticks damage, essentially. And like I said, it's unclear whether or not Moira's damage is counted as a beam or as damage over time, but I'm pretty sure it is a beam weapon, and because of that, it will not be affected by the changes in Season 10 to the tank's armor. So tank armor is not actually is not affecting beam weapons at all. So the Zarya, the Symmetra beam, and I'm pretty sure Moira's beam will deal the same amount of damage regardless, and that's valuable to know because it means that you can remain accurate over long distances. Also, beam weapons do not crit, and because of their damage over time nature and the fact that they don't crit, they will also not be impacted by the changes to tanks taking less critical damage, which is negative 25% after the mid-season patch here in Season 10, and because of that, like, you're just going to see Moira will be slightly more effective than she was prior to, because not only is her damage like, compared to the rest of the cast, right? Not only is her damage not being affected by the 25% reduction in critical damage, it's also not being affected by the armor changes, which are going to affect different characters differently. Submachine gun characters like Tracer and Sombra more than higher damage characters, higher burst damage characters like Cassidy and Ashe. But Moira won't be affected by any of that, so she will be sitting pretty after these changes here in Season 10. And let me just make sure that I've done everyone here. That is, yes. I believe that is the entire cast. Ana, Bap, Brig, Ilari, yes. So that is the entire cast. That is aiming here in Overwatch 2, and the differences between each weapon. The main thing that you want to look at when you are trying to get better at your aim is what weapon are you using, what character are you using, and understanding how their weapon actually works. And in doing so, you're going to better understand how to get the most value out of your character over long distances, over short distances. Depending on where you're actually fighting, you'll be able to get more value out of your character. So real quick, we're going to talk about reticles. And reticles are more aesthetic than they are anything else. However, when you're first learning a character, I recommend that you stick with the default reticle, because it actually tells you the performance of the weapon just based on you using the weapon. It will show you the bloom, which is what you're seeing here with Tracer, where the weapon blooms out sideways like that. It will also show you the accuracy of the weapon over long distances, where with Ashe, as you hip fire with her, you'll see that she deals this amount of damage, but as you aim down sights, you'll see she deals a larger amount of damage, and that's based on the zoom, right? And this is not Ashe's default reticle, but the point holds that you will be able to see the changes or lack thereof and give you a better understanding of how the weapon you're actually using works. Where Lifeweaver has a very small amount of bloom over time compared to a Tracer who has a very large amount of bloom over time, compared to a Reaper who has no bloom over time. Right, and all of that is important to understand when you're trying to aim better. The other thing is when you do get used to how the weapon works, when you understand fully how the weapon that you're utilizing works, it's important to pick a reticle that you like. And I can't recommend enough just messing around with some custom reticles and trying to get an idea of what fits well for you. Like, what is easy for you to see? For me, it's green, and I utilize this green color, this kind of light green, because it works for me. It is more easy for me to see than other colors, and you need to be able to see your reticle to understand where your shots are going and whether or not you are actually on target. So I highly encourage you to pick a reticle that works for you. Where I have the single dot on the Sojourn. If you look, my custom reticle on Soldier is a little bit different because it tells me the recoil pattern, right? So this is reminding me that this character has a vertical recoil pattern and that I need to pull down on the stick or on the mouse for me. So the reticles can do different things depending on how you want them to go. You can keep the bloom, you can remove the bloom, but you need to understand first how the weapon works before you spend too much time worrying about what reticle you think might be best. And then again, like for characters like Echo, I have an even larger reticle spread than I do on Soldier. You'll see the cross is tighter on Soldier. right, compared to Echo, where the cross is larger, to remind me that the spread of the weapon continues to spread out, right? And this is, again, this is just personal preference, but this is for the characters that you play, for the characters that you main. I think it's important to mess around with a few different reticles and just see what feels good for you. There is no one-size-fits-all option. There is no right or wrong answer here. It's kind of just based off of your personal preference, and as you get used to a character and you get used to how their weapon works, you can change it around and mess with different colors and mess with different settings, and just see if you can find one that you actually enjoy. The other thing is character height comes into play when you're talking about aim, and this is never more evident than when using a character like Genji compared to a character like Soldier. So I'm going to make this character Soldier, and I'm just going to show you Genji, based on his posture, is a lower naturally than Soldier. So he, as you play Genji, and this counts for other shorter characters as well, like Lucio, as you play Genji, you need to naturally aim up to be able to hit your headshots more readily. Where this might feel like the natural place for you to be, you actually need to aim higher to be able to hit headshots on people because of the height of the actual character. And I can show you this on Lucio as well, same thing, where Lucio needs to aim slightly up because he is actually shorter than most of the characters in the cast, right? So to be able to hit those headshots, you need to aim higher than what feels like it should be the center of the screen. In addition to that, when you play a character like Soldier versus another character like Soldier, you're going to see that the reticle kind of defaults to the head area anyway, and this is like, as you put the two characters next to each other, you're going to see that like they're basically the same height. This is where you would imagine in first-person shooters, I don't know if you guys knew this, but in first-person shooters, shots actually come out of your head, and that's why you like, they don't come out of your gun. It looks like they come out of your gun. There's like animations to make it look like they come out of your gun, but they actually come out of the front of your forehead. So this is why when you are head glitching over certain corners like this is a head glitch. This is why you are able to actually shoot people, because from their perspective, they can only see the top of your head. However, your bullets actually come out of the top of your head. So that is important to understand. So as long as you are like head level with the target, then you can kind of be center mass with the target. You can kind of naturally rest it in the center and have that that same amount of headshot accuracy. Whereas when you play like a very tall character, like a Roadhog, you can see the difference between versus the Cassidy. You see the difference in height between these two characters. Maybe Roadhog is a bad example. Let me pick somebody who's a little bit more vertically in line here. You can see with Orisa, right? Orisa, the natural place for your reticle is a little bit higher than the Soldier, and because of that, you just need to aim down slightly. And you just think about the size of your character compared to the size of the character that you're hitting, and that will help you to determine where you want your crosshair to actually be. And again, like, you can see how much bigger she is than actual Soldier. And that's why, as you have the reticle in what feels like the center of your screen, it's slightly higher than his head. And that works for every character in the game. So the shorter the character, the higher you need to aim. The taller the character, the lower you need to aim, relatively speaking. There are some characters like Junkrat, who is kind of like in between, just a little bit shorter, and does not actually have a headshot multiplier. And because of that, it doesn't really matter where you aim, right? Like, it matters more that you are aiming in a place that will allow you to take advantage of the trajectory of your actual grenades than it does whether or not you're aimed on their head or center mass. And that is true as well for characters like Pharah, who are mostly in the sky, or Echo, who are mostly in the sky. You want to aim kind of more like down onto people, and that will allow you to get a better feeling for how the character should actually be engaged with. Okay. Alright, is there anything else that I wanted to cover in this guide? Characters like Zen. Zen is kind of a short character, but he floats, right? So when you compare him to like a Soldier, he's actually like right about the same height as a Soldier. As I go into the emote here, you can see that like the head is almost the same size as a Soldier. And because of that, this is like, you can basically aim straight on with Zen. And if he was on the ground, though, he would be a much shorter character. Somebody like Lifeweaver is also pretty tall. This is another one of those characters that you have to aim down a little bit on, although he is like basically the same size as Soldier as we put them next to each other. Just a little bit taller, right? And that comes into play less often than you might think, but it is something to remember. And just want to make sure that this is it before I go. Alright, so we covered projectile, we covered hit scan, we covered bloom, we covered the spread of shotguns, we covered the distance that you need to utilize shotguns, we covered May and damage fall off, we covered damage fall off, we covered rockets, we covered turrets. We didn't cover Torbjorn's turret. Torbjorn's turret is kind of unique in that it has a pretty long range and will engage people that are inside of its line of sight from pretty large distances. So if I actually go down here and I toss it at the 40-meter mark, I'm just going to do it like right here so that it can only see the target in front of it. Just waiting for it to come off cooldown. Torb's turret actually shoots from a ridiculously huge distance, and it does not deal more damage to depending on how close it is. So you can put Torb's turret in like some crazy far off spaces and use it to like counter angle with you. So like if I were fighting, let's just say I were fighting these targets, these bots down here, I would want to put Torb's turret like right here. And then I would fight them from the front so that they are getting shot from multiple angles. And even if they're blocking me, they're getting damaged from the turret. That is kind of a more advanced aim technique. Oh, I didn't cover Torb's primary fire. Torb's primary fire works similar to Hanzo's arrow insofar as that it has an arc, although the arc is not quite as strong as Hanzo's arrow. So you're going to see that it will continue to hit, and the aim assist appears to be a little bit higher on Torb's as well. So you're going to see that it will continue to hit as a headshot even from pretty long distances, even when you are not necessarily on the target. I'm just going to wait till it levels. Bang, right? And I'm like pretty far above the target now, but the farther away they are, the more you need to aim up. The arc for Torbjorn's primary fire is incredibly important to learn. The critical damage multiplier is also very strong. So you see that's 4 shots compared to the 2 shots that it takes in the head on a 250 HP target. Very important that you learn Torb's arc of his primary fire, because while he is kind of a mid character in general, he has multiple weapons and multiple weapon styles that force you to learn a bunch of different stuff to be able to utilize him effectively. Then we covered the Storm Arrow. The cube for Sombra has a very straightforward kind of throw, but it does not eventually disappear. I thought, for whatever reason, I thought that it disappeared after a certain distance, but I'm pretty sure, now that I just saw that it continued on forever, I was pretty sure it worked like Venture's gun in that it disappears after a certain distance, but it doesn't look like it does. So from here, we're able to hit targets from incredibly far out, so you can utilize that to even put damage on people that are very far away from you. And the Venom Mine from Widowmaker will function similarly to the shot from an Ana when the target armor comes into play. Excuse me. After the Season 10 mid-season patch, the damage from the Venom Mine will have 5 of its damage reduced in total instead of 5 of its damage per tick. And because of that, it will remain powerful against armored targets even past the armor changes here in the mid-season 10 patch. It also has a pretty significant excuse me, arc to it, and because of that, you need to aim it high if you want it to go anywhere far away. Right, and you can see that even aiming it all the way up here, it didn't even make it to above the stairs. And so that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're using Widow. I think that does it, dude. I think that about does it. I think that covers everything. The knife on Junker Queen has a similar arc to the Torbjorn's primary fire. So as you throw it, it kind of aims itself down, although it gets harder the farther away that you actually throw it. So like, as I'm throwing it from 40 meters, you need to throw it from a significantly higher distance because of how long it has to go. And it also works like a boomerang because it can damage targets from the back end as well. I didn't actually mean to show that right away, But there you go. If it hits targets, if it does not actually connect with somebody and it comes back on its own, it will actually boomerang targets from behind. You're able to get a large amount of damage on them, and it will also, if you kill the target with the knife, it will also leave the knife on the ground there, so that when you do call the knife back, it will continue to hit targets through its trajectory as well. And as it hits, you see it deals impact damage, it wields them over time, and then it also hits everything inside of its trajectory coming back. It will always reach your hand on its flyback, regardless of whether you like spin around or like do a crazy whatever, like a 180 or something like that, right? Like, even if I turn all the way around, it's still there. The axe, what's the axe called? Carnage. Carnage actually works from a decent bit away, so if you can use it from like 5 meters and still get the hit on people. Right, and even though you wouldn't immediately think that an axe would hit from 5 meters away, it actually does have a decent amount of distance, and as I back up a little bit, just past the 5 meter mark, you're going to see that it no longer hits. Right, but within this range, as you're kind of within her optimal damage fall-off range, you can actually get damage from the axe, which is nice, because it means that you don't actually have to be inside of the inside of melee range with them. That being said, a melee actually does not hit from this distance, so that is indicative of the axe having a handle and being able to be swung from a larger distance than like a melee knife would be able to. You see that the axe's model is actually larger than the melee knife itself, and this can trip you up if you get into a scenario where you just hit somebody with the axe and you try to follow up with a melee, because you do actually need to move forward a significant distance before you're actually able to hit them with the knife in terms of a melee. And let me just see, just make sure that I covered everything else. Doomfist, this isn't really a gun per se, but his dive utilizes a cone tech, which the cone tech gets larger the farther away you are, and then has a 0 damage drop off after a certain point. Like, it will drop its damage all the way down to 0. So as I dive with Doom, you're going to see that the cone actually goes out like this. It starts narrow and becomes wider past the distance that it actually is, and it hits right around this 10 meter mark. Right, so you can see the blue as the blue particle effect is the cone actually working. So I'm going to try and do that again. So you can see the blue kind of ride the floor right there. And like I said, the farther away they are, the wider the cone actually gets. But it deals the same amount of damage whether they are up close or far away. Let's just kill them so that I can show you. If I do it very, very close to them, same amount of damage. Right? Roughly 2 of their bubbles, where if I do it from back here, same thing, 2 of their bubbles, right? So that is something to keep in mind. The rocket punch itself deals more damage when you ricochet off of walls, so this is something that you need to keep in mind. If you're aiming your rocket punch, you need to try and hit them into the wall, because not only will you get the damage from the punch itself, but you will get the impact damage from the wall, and that is made more powerful when the power block meter is full, which is the meter on the right-hand side when you are utilizing power block. And Ramatra's punches have a decent amount of range to them, so when you are using RAM, you can utilize the punches even from like up to 10 meters. I want to say it's like 10 meters away, and you'll still be able to hit them. This is 10. Right, and you're still able to hit them from here, but it has a very large damage fall off past 10 meters, where it basically deals nothing. It becomes wholly ineffective past that 10 meter mark, so that is something that you need to keep in mind. You can use it to blast through shields, and you can deal a strong amount of damage. It does not have a headshot multiplier, so even if you're just hitting them in the body, it will kill targets pretty effectively, but its range becomes incredibly limited past the 10 meter mark, to where it loses all of its effectiveness entirely, so that's something to keep in mind. The Cassidy Sticky Grenade feels like it should not work from certain distances, but it actually has some of the longest range of any ability in the entire game, as evidenced by me being able to hit this sniper bot. Excuse me, this, if I do it from, like, right here, I should be able to hit this, this bot down here with, like, 30 meters worth of range, roughly 30 meters, right? It needs to... initiate the stick animation before it actually blows up. So the stick animation will delay its detonation, which is something to keep in mind with Cass. So as I throw it here, that wasn't quite high enough. I'm just going to throw it from, like, right here, try and show you what I mean. This is a little bit difficult because I'm trying to get it right at the edge of its detonation range. But if I throw it from here, that's not quite enough, right? But then I aim slightly higher. This demonstration takes a long time to pull off. I'm sorry that I missed it so many times. As I aim slightly higher. And of course it didn't stick. Slightly higher even than that. It does have some detonation damage that happens around it as well, so even if you don't stick, it will still hit the target for a small amount of damage. There it goes. So as you would expect it to detonate, the latch-on animation actually delays the stick until after it latches on. So you can extend the distance of it by nailing that sweet spot. And yes, it's a magnetic grenade, but I still feel like this is a little bit wild. Like the amount of distance that you can actually get with this thing compared to how good it actually is. Like, I feel like that's a lot of forgiveness. And you can even use it from, like, the side as well. So I'll throw it away from the bot, and I'll show you that it will latch on even sideways. Its aim assist is very, very, very high. That's a little bit too far. And the farther away I am, actually, the greater the distance to the right of the target it's actually throwing. But let's try it from here. I just want to wait until this platform gets out of the way. Still a little bit too far. But you can see that the detonation damage actually did hit it from there. But I want you to see its, like, ridiculous side arc, because you can actually throw this around corners as well against targets who are a little bit closer. It's bugging me. Hang on. You know what? I'm gonna use it from around this corner so that you can see what I'm talking about here. So as I throw it here, it doesn't quite get them. But as I catch just a tiny bit of their character model on my screen, the magnetism will stick onto them even when it's not actually on them entirely. And you can use this from around corners to catch people and deal either the remaining amount of health that they have or an additional burst of damage to them from basically complete safety, right? Because, like, that's pretty ridiculous. And it works from this side as well. I just get a tiny, tiny bit of their character model inside of my view. And as you get better with this technique, you'll be able to strafe and press the button at the perfect time to where it will stick on to people. And you basically never saw them. You never put yourself into danger. And so you're kind of curving your magnetic grenade in that way. And that's kind of a unique tech to Cassidy, just because it has so much aim assist. Of course, I missed it right there, but you get the idea, right? You get the idea. So, that's Cassidy's stick tech. All of that aim will help you in games. It'll help you to stay alive and help keep you relevant in scenarios where you may not be able to take shots. I forgot to talk about Zarya's right-click. Zarya's right-click has a large explosion and also a very large, powerful boop, which you can utilize to knock people off of bridges. So as you are right-clicking onto people, you can combine the boop with the environmental effects to potentially knock people off of ledges, as well as deal AoE damage to people who are nearby. So the explosion itself has a little bit of damage. The boop itself will also take people to where, like, potentially knock them off of a ledge, which I'm going to utilize over here on this soldier. We're just going to boop his feet. And you can see how big the boop is on an actual character there. And the splash damage is actually pretty large as well. Able to hit both of the bots as they are standing next to each other for a pretty good amount of damage. And again, it really knocks characters around when you hit them with the right click. So this is an effective use of Zarya at longer ranges when you can't get within her 15-meter beam range. The direct impact boops for the same amount as the hitting it on the floor near them. So for maximum effectiveness, you want to hit it on the floor in the middle of the biggest group of characters you can find. And in doing so, you're going to get the largest amount of potential boop value. And there he goes. The Sigma Rock is another one of those abilities that has a very hard... What's up, Flo? What's going on, dude? Thanks for being here. We're talking about aim today. The Sigma Rock is one of those very hard trajectory abilities to learn, because the rock is meant to show that it has weight, so after a certain point it falls down very quickly. So you can see that it flies pretty well from there, from 20 meters, but as we go back to 30 meters, you're going to watch it drop, and the rock drop becomes more, and it needs to be compensated for more and more the farther away you go, right? So you can see that it did not hit them from 30 meters, but if you aim it up, you'll be able to watch the rock fall directly onto them, and this will help you land your stuns as Sigma. And this stun is one of the best abilities that Sigma has. It also comes with a boop as well. So if you can utilize this when somebody is on a ledge, similar to Zarya's right click, which is what made me think of this originally, you can actually use this to knock targets off of ledges, and not just stun them, but also stun them while they're falling, which will remove their ability to react to the stun, right? So like if you hit a Lucio with it and he falls off the ledge, he's not going to be able to wall ride onto the ledge as he falls down, because he'll be inside of his stun animation. Yes, and the workshop code. Flo, let me pull up, thank you for reminding me. Let me pull up the workshop code so that everybody can get a really good workshop to practice their aim as they go into their practice ranges as well. That's not it, hang on. This is the workshop code here. You guys can use this workshop code sent in by our viewer Flo to increase your ability to aim better. It's kind of like an aim trainer, but inside of Overwatch itself, which I have saved this, and it's incredibly helpful. The amount of times where you need to practice your aim inside of the practice range is a little bit limited, like the amount of things that you can make the targets do. This gives you a much better, I used my mouse to highlight over it as though you could see it. The import code will give you a much better ability to practice on from different scenarios than you would be able to if you were just utilizing the practice range itself. Make use of this tool. It is incredibly impactful, and that's where I practice my sleep dart. Hell yeah. The tool itself is just so useful. The ability to practice from different ranges against different characters, etc. is incredibly good. When you're utilizing Pigpen actually on Roadhog actually has a knock up effect. So when somebody steps on it, it knocks them up into the sky, similar to the pile driver on a Wrecking Ball, and the knocking them up into the sky makes them unable to strafe. And when they're unable to strafe, they can't get out of the way of your primary fire, which makes it very easy for you to hit them while they're in the air, assuming that you have the reaction speed good enough. And similarly, like I said, Wrecking Ball's pile driver, which you can utilize with his hook, you pull yourself up into the sky, and the pile driver itself will actually knock targets into the air as well. So you can utilize the pile driver to knock targets up, and you can then primary fire them, easily getting a large amount of damage onto them before they're able to strafe out of the way. So that is another good technique to utilize. Wrecking Ball in general has a lot of tech that you can use now, especially with your ability to retract your claw to the origin point with the spacebar. Wrecking Ball actually allows you to do a significant amount of things with the claw itself. The only thing you can't do, which is kind of sad, is let yourself back down once you have retracted to the top of the hook. So you can't pull yourself back after that. But if you do utilize the hook and you don't make it to the fireball speed, like if you just pull yourself up and then you use that, you'll actually only have a 1 second cooldown on your hook. So you can attach it to high ground and then pull yourself up and let yourself out, and then keep your hook off of cooldown for when you want to ram somebody, which is very useful, in my opinion. The Wrecking Ball in general is going to be one of the more meta tanks here moving into this mid-season patch, so I highly recommend that if you guys don't play Wrecking Ball, at least here and there, that you give him a shot so that you get an idea of the things he's going to be able to do, because the places that Wrecking Balls will come out of are about to be crazy. The character itself has already been very good, but with the changes to tank, Wrecking Ball is going to be sitting pretty, although it's going to be very difficult for them to fight other tanks. They're going to be an incredibly meta character here in like a week, so definitely practice up with them. And I want to say that about does it. Oh, the range on Ilari's shot, her primary fire, is significantly less than significantly greater than the range on her actual heal. So this is also something you want to keep in mind. So while you're shooting people, you need to remember that you can only hit people from so far. As I walk out of this this line here, you can see that I'm no longer healing them from this distance, but still able to get full damage out of her primary fire. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. There's a sweet spot for Illari, which Flo knows all too well, but the sweet spot is important for you to commit to muscle memory, because if you don't, you're going to have situations like this, where you're shooting somebody who you feel like should be close enough, but they aren't, and that's because her actual damage gun has a longer range than her actual heal to get maximum value. When you are utilizing Moira, she also has a similar problem, where her 20-meter range on her beam is actually a lot larger than her range on her heal. So as I move into range here, you see I'm able to target this bot with the beam, but I'm not actually able to... Oh, I can actually. This isn't, maybe not necessarily the best way. Let's see if I can do it from like here. I can still target this bot, but I can't heal that bot over there, right? Exact same distance, but the spray, the healing spray itself, is actually less than the offensive spray. So something to keep in mind. That is true with both Illari and Moira. Their damage is actually more rangy than their heal. The characters like Lifeweaver, characters like Kiriko, they have an unlimited range on their heal, basically. Although there's travel time that you have to keep in mind. The amount of range that you can get out of those characters is pretty high. When you are utilizing... I talked about this earlier, but a lot of characters have a pretty large amount of aim assist, but none more than like Mercy and Zenyatta. But when you're utilizing other characters as well, I encourage you to try out shooting around a target's head so that you can get an idea for how strong their aim assist is and where the aim assist falls off, because there's actually a separate cone, an invisible cone for aim assist that stops being effective over long distances, right? So you can see I have to be pretty close to this soldier's head to actually hit them as Ashe. Pretty close to his head, right? But when you aim down sights, you can actually be farther away from his head, and that's because of the zoom. So your cone, your aim assist cone actually extends farther when you have zoom than it does when you are hip firing, and that's true for Widowmaker as well. So your aim assist on a far away shot is actually farther, a much greater distance than when you're hip firing. So if I like take it to the very edge there, like right there, it's still a headshot while aiming down sights. A little bit hard to show because the cone itself is invisible, but that is the case. You can shoot around target's head and still get the headshot damage, and it's never more noticeable than it is with Mercy, which again you can see right now my reticle is not on soldier at all, and I fire and you can hear the tink. That's a headshot with Mercy. That is a massive aim assist cone. I encourage you guys to practice that if you don't already. Just get an idea of where around the head of a target you can aim and still catch the one-hit kill. It's less noticeable with Widowmaker, who it feels like has to be right on point, right? As you shoot around a target's head. You can see that there's just a tiny bit of forgiveness around them. As I put it slightly to the right. Slightly to the right. And this is like... This is the game aiming for you, even on mouse and keyboard. Right, so that's too far. Still too far. But then I come over a little bit, just a tiny bit more, and that's a headshot, right? And you can feel that with all of the characters. All of the, like, less so the rocket characters, like Pharah and the Helix rocket. You feel it less with them, but you definitely feel it with the characters that are using precise shots. You can also see it on Orisa. Orisa is also a big problem with this. As you get closer... You see, I'm not even on the target's head right now. Pretty far away on that second bot over there from the actual head, but still able to land the headshots on Orisa. So a lot of these are very forgiving in terms of what you can do with them. It's not aim assist, actually, it's just projectile size. Hit scan just got a much smaller increase. The It is aim assist. It also has to do with projectile size, which did get increased, so it's more noticeable now than it's ever been. But, like, for Mercy, like, 100% has, and we talked about this in Overwatch 1 a lot, how it was so easy to aim with Mercy compared to, like, a Zen. They're a lot closer now, but, like, the Zen projectile size, if you look, is actually bullet-sized, even though it looks like it's an orb. But it's larger than, like, the projectile size of, like, a Sojourn.
We're in this together. All of us.
But yeah, so it does come into that as well. It also has to do with character model and the skin you're using. So certain skins have a larger hitbox on, like, heads and stuff like that, depending on what skin you're using. I don't have a good example of that, I don't think, right here. Let me just see. Do I have any Lucio skins? Yeah, there we go. So, like, a Lucio Ribbit skin will have a larger hitbox than a Lucio, like his Hippity Hop skin, right? Excuse me, not Hippity Hop, Slapshot. You can see because his head is actually larger. So the frog skins actually have a bigger head and are more easily able to be headshot, which is also something cool. The projectile is actually bigger than the in-game model, so it looks like it misses, but it actually hits. Well, that's interesting. So aim assist is something that we've had, and we've always had in shooters. It's less so on mouse and keyboard. You feel it a lot more when you're playing on controller, because they have a natural aim assist curve to it, where it's like it's greater to make up for the lack of precision comparatively. And the Season 9 also increased projectile sizes, which made aiming quite a bit easier on certain characters too. So that helps. So anybody who is trying to aim, if you take all of this into consideration, you learn your gun, you learn what the gun does and the nuances of it, then you mess around with reticles until you find a reticle that you like. Then you go into our aim trainer, custom made by our boy Flo here, and you go in and you practice up on your shots, like, and then you learn your forgiveness window around a target's hitbox. You're gonna have a pretty easy time of being able to aim and hit the precision shots that you want to hit. But it all comes down to how much practice do you put in. And if you're not practicing, you're not going to see the results that you want. So the more practice that you put in, and not just like go into games and play games, but literal practice, like understanding the nuances of certain things, where headshots actually hit and where they don't hit, right? Like you can see as Roadhog breathes, I'm able to hit the headshot on him. This is also character animations and the way that they stand. So Roadhog's head is pretty large as it is, but it also moves around slightly, so it lets you hit him even when you're not actually on him. And like, so the more you do this, intentional practice, learning, and committing to muscle memory, the easier of a time you will have actually landing your shots in game. And if you're not hitting crits with most of these characters, most characters in the game require you to hit crits. The exceptions being Zarya, the exception being Symmetra, Ana, Moira. These are like some of the only, Venture and Sigma. These are like the only characters in the game that have 0 critical modifiers. And other than that, you need to be aiming for the head. And when I say, you know, when we joke and say, just aim for the head, as if it were really that easy, it kind of is once you know, right? Farah is another one that has no headshot damage multiplier, although she has a body shot multiplier compared to her splash damage. There was some insane movement, high-level tracers were... There is some insane movement high-level tracers do where they strafe while repeatedly crouching. Yeah. And that's another thing, like a lot of things that you can do on Tracer, you can't do on other characters, like immediately 180ing, so that you're, while you come face-to-face with a target, you immediately are behind them, right? And it's, like, impossible to track, so a lot of times you can make people whiff their shots just based off of the speed that you can do. But, and if you combine a blink with a crouch, you can also utilize the change in elevation of your head to, even if, like, the character model looks like it's on you, like, even if you go into the replay viewer, if you crouch and blink at the same time, and then unblink or uncrouch as soon as you come out of the blink, it's a little bit hard to pull off, but the shots will go right through what looks like your head, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty dope, actually. It's something that they talked about in Overwatch 1 when it was like Tracer was really meta, and Widow was like the only other hit scan in the game that could really one hit to the head. Like, we can do it a little bit with Sojourn now, but you could really tell with Widow because her gun has like that trace to it. Ironically, right? The shot has the smoke, right? So you'll be able to pause it in the replay viewer and be like, right here, it was right through their head. But in reality, you know, it's not quite. Also, ping comes into play, so you have to think about ping. Getting a better internet connection will also help you aim better, for those of you who are wondering. High-speed internet, like Fios, fiber optic, or even just like high-speed cable internet, will give you a better experience overall in-game. So if you have like a low-tier internet, or like if you're at Starbucks playing on their Wi-Fi, you are going to have a harder time hitting shots because your ping is higher. So where it shows on your screen people actually are, may not actually be where people are. This also comes into play with your monitor's refresh rate. If you're using a monitor, your monitor's response time, even. If you're using a monitor with a low response time, like a 1 ms response time monitor, will give you a significantly better experience than playing on a television. So if you guys are playing on TVs, get yourself a monitor, because you will definitely have a better time. Also, there's a sweet spot for monitors and televisions for aim, where there's a certain size where it becomes basically too big, and you're now hindering yourself, and that size is different for every person, but it is like where you can see all parts of the screen, and not have to actually move your eyes to those parts, right? So like at a certain size level, the screen is too big and you cannot take in all of the information given to you by the screen. Also, televisions have a massive response time difference compared to monitors. So this is it's like a big deal if you're playing on a television all the time and you're wondering why it feels like you shot somebody but you didn't actually get the hit. It could be that you're playing on a TV and your response time of your television is not as good as the response time on like a monitor. So the thing that you're seeing has actually already happened, although it was a split second ago, right? Having bad internet actually increased my reflexes so much back in the day. At some point, I started using my PS4 at a different place, and I noticed having significantly more time to shoot people. My average KD tripled overnight. Bro, I'm telling you, internet plays a huge deal. It plays a huge deal in whether or not you're able to hit these shots, because it's a peer-to-peer connection-based game. So you need to connect to them, they need to connect to you, and what you're seeing may not be the thing that is actually happening in real time. And that's something to consider. I'm going to ask chat real quick. Flo, Cell, anybody else who is here in chat, do you guys have any other aim tips real quick in the next, 2 minutes before I go ahead and end this thing? Because we've been talking about aim for, 2 hours and 56 minutes here. I'm sure that anybody who watches this will get a ton of value out of it. Most modern TVs are actually really good for gaming these days. They're essentially big monitors. That is, assuming they have game mode. This is incredibly important. If you're not using game mode for your television, you need to go into your television settings and turn on game mode, because game mode will actually reduce your response time on your television down to a 5 ms response time, which 5 ms is functionally the same as 1 ms, except for in the most extreme scenarios. It's almost no different. So you have to go into your television and actually enable game mode, and that will drastically decrease the amount of time it takes for your TV to show the thing on the screen. Flo's big tip is don't force yourself to shoot at max fire rate. That is also a huge deal, and I talked about that earlier with Soldier, where if you're firing at max fire rate, the recoil becomes crazy. And if you're firing at max fire rate with a Widowmaker, the bloom becomes crazy. And by reducing your maximum fire rate and firing in short bursts, you're going to be more able to actively hit your shots on targets. That is useful, Flo. Thank you. Yeah, firing at max fire rate with a Cassidy, zero difference, right? Basically zero difference, aside from the reticle doesn't fully reset unless you just wait a hair longer. I'm pretty sure if you max fire, you're still not quite fully reset. But the full firing semi-automatic, which is you press each trigger manually, will allow you time to have your recoil reset between each shot. And that will give you the accuracy advantage that you need. For heroes like Cassidy, you aim, ensure you're on target, and then shoot. Don't spam your shots while aiming. Yes, do not full auto. Don't full auto pretty much ever with any character. There's really no reason to. Not even with Reaper, not even if you're up in a target's face. You want to take the shot, aim the shot, and then press each time. The main thing that will help you with hitting shots on Reaper is making sure that each shot is on point, because you can be out-strafed if you are firing full auto. If they learn your strafe pattern and they line it up perfectly, they can actually out-strafe you, and that will significantly reduce the amount of damage that you're able to put out. So, yes, not firing full auto is incredibly useful. And yeah, and don't forget to move, right? Don't forget to move. Oh, one more thing. One more aim tip for controller users specifically. While you are playing on controller, put your, first of all, let's do it on Ash so that I can just show. You want to put your crosshair at head level and then make fine adjustments using your left stick. So if you're specifically playing on controller, you want to put your crosshair at head level and then adjust to be where you want the reticle to be based on your movement, not your actual aim, which is another thing that is important to remember. Aiming will force you, aiming while moving will force you to exaggerate the movement that you needed. The fine adjustment can be done with just the left stick alone. And then similarly, when you're aiming on characters like Widowmaker, you want to aim while not aim down sights, point it in their general direction, and then flick to the target, not aim down sights and then move over there. You never want to do this, right, to try and find your target. You want to point your reticle towards the target that you want to aim at, then aim down sights and flick to get your shot. Overwatch tip, if you suck at aiming, play Moira. That's true. Ryan also, if you hate yourself. And then, not only that, but you can practice cleaving on Ryan as well. Cell says, I don't know if this would work for everyone, but usually if you're already tracking an enemy, I say shoot before you think about actually shooting. That can also be helpful because, again, we come down to the ping thing. If you, plus aim assist, plus projectile size, there's a lot that goes into it, but sometimes if you fire before you actually know that you're on the target, you will be able to snag the shot on, especially moving targets who may be in a different place than it actually looks like they are. All right. Thank you for you guys who hung out here in the show. Thank you for listening to me ramble on for 3 hours about aim. I hope this was useful and helpful to everybody. It's time for me to go and make some lunch here before I gotta go and do the rest of the things throughout the day. I will be on tomorrow actually playing some Overwatch, so if you guys want to chill and play with me tomorrow, I would be happy to jump into some games with you. I'll be on at the normal time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The last time I did an aim video, I got told that I didn't actually give any aiming tips in the video, so I made sure to make this one wholly about aim. This entire thing was about aiming and about getting better at aim and honing your skills inside of Overwatch, so make sure that you guys watch it all the way through. If you got value out of it, please press the like button, and I appreciate everybody for coming out. Overwatch is how I switched to mouse and keyboard. That was a harsh transition. Overwatch has a small amount of aim assist compared to other games too, so you're not kidding when you say it was a harsh transition. Like, if you played a game like Destiny, and then you came over and played a game like Overwatch, you didn't realize, while playing Destiny, how shit you were at aiming, until you got here, and you realized, oh my god, like, the massive aim assist inside of Destiny made it so easy for me to hit shots. Like, I can't hit the broadside of a barn anymore, and like, it takes some getting used to. So, you know, don't get discouraged either. Remember that practice will help you improve over time, and it does take time to commit things to muscle memory. I'm glad you caught the end of it, too. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. And if you guys have any more aim tips, you can leave them in the comments of this show. Our practice range is about to shut down anyway. So thank you guys for hanging out. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great rest of your day. Do something fun for me, and I will see you guys then. I'm Moonchild of DudeNoWay, and I'll see you in the next stream. It just cut off for me. Hopefully it didn't cut off. Anyway, see ya.